This guy just opened his eyes, and the first thing that caught his attention was a pair of tiny, chubby hands. Looking up slightly, he saw the members of the Runcandel clan, and everyone looked incredibly young. He even spotted Gilly, his nanny since childhood. "Cheer up, young Master Jin." Gilly laughed happily. Jin looked around and saw numerous swords driven into the ground. Standing out the most among them was Barasada, the sword of the very first patriarch. This situation was identical to the selection ritual from his childhood, and without thinking, Jin crawled toward that sword, Barasada. He quickly figured out the reason for what was happening. It seemed like he had regressed, returning to when he was Jin Runcandel at just 1 year old. In his past life, right in this very spot, Jin had also chosen the sword of the clan's founder. However, contrary to the hopes that he would grow up to possess powerful abilities and lead the entire clan, Jin turned out to be complete trash. He didn't show even a shred of talent in swordsmanship and was eventually kicked out of the Runcandel clan. It wasn't until he was facing death that Jin learned the truth. Someone had cast a malicious curse on him called the Bladed Illusion. It was the very thing that devoured his talent for the sword and turned him into the family disgrace. Thinking of this, Jin crawled even faster, and it didn't take long before he reached out and touched Barasada, much to the satisfaction of the entire clan. Even though this was exactly like his past life, in this lifetime, he would be the one in control of his own destiny. After Jin chose the sword Barasada, he was taken to the Storm Castle to begin his life there. Before he knew it, 6 years had flown by, and Jin was now 7 years old. According to clan rules, he had to live there until he turned 10, which meant he had 3 more years to go. To be honest, life here was incredibly boring. On top of that, Jin still had to deal with the childish antics of his older brothers. This wasn't much different from his past life. For instance, today, while he was seriously looking for a book to read, he suddenly heard a maid scream in terror. It turned out that when she went into Jin's room to clean up, she saw a dead bird lying there in a gruesome state, covered in blood. Jin looked at the bird without his expression changing at all, because he knew that the only ones capable of doing something like this in the Storm Castle were his brothers. Just as he expected, the laughter of Daytona and Haytona, the 9-year-old twins who ranked 11th and 12th in the Runcandel family, echoed from nearby. They were even disappointed that the maid was the first to find the bird instead of their little brother. "Well, do you like the present your big brothers got you? Are you touched enough to cry?" Jin kept staring at the bird without blinking, but his mind drifted back to his past life. He remembered hearing that not long after he was kicked out of the family, these two became notorious killers who treated human lives like garbage. Seeing how, at just 9 years old, they could treat an innocent bird so cruelly just to mess with him, Jin felt that it wasn't surprising at all that they ended up becoming cold-blooded killers. "Hey, don't actually cry now. That'd be embarrassing," Haytona mocked, but Jin only met them with silence. "Hey, did you hear what we just said? Or do you think you're too good for us, just because destiny chose you to be the patriarch?" Jin remained dead silent. This attitude of his completely wore out the patience of the two 9-year-olds. They decided to stop using their words and get physical. But as Haytona lunged forward to throw a punch, his hand was caught and locked tight by his brother, who was 2 years younger than him. "You guys are way too loud, shut up." Haytona seemed shocked by his little brother's naturally ice-cold expression. But the real surprise came next, as Jin delivered a devastating punch right to his face. A single punch wasn't nearly enough, especially since he had been tolerating them from his past life to this one, so his anger was finally exploding. Jin treated the twins like punch bags, unleashing a relentless barrage of blows on them. After beating them until they were flat on the floor, he was satisfied enough to leave them with a warning. "It'd be best if you guys don't show your faces in front of me ever again." "Young master, what on earth happened here?" A knight named Khan suddenly burst into the room. Jin immediately withdrew the residual power from his hands. Khan stared at the unconscious twins sprawled on the ground, their clothes disheveled and their faces swollen from the beating, while Jin stood there perfectly neat and clean, looking as if he hadn't been involved in the fight at all. "They just suddenly started fighting each other," he replied. Naturally, Khan didn't buy that for a second. "Excuse me?" he asked. "Did you not hear me? They suddenly started fighting each other and knocked themselves out." By now, the truth didn't even matter anymore. The moment Khan looked into the cold face of the 7-year-old child, he realized that even the youngest master of the Runcandel family was just as ruthless as the rest. He nodded, saying he understood, and picked up the twins, intending to take them to a doctor. But Khan was stopped by Jin. "That won't be necessary, Khan. My brothers need to go somewhere else." "Follow me." Khan hesitated but didn't dare disobey his young master's orders. He carried the twins outside along with Jin. Outside Storm Castle, the rain was pouring heavily. Jin ordered Khan to dump Daytona and Haytona under a large tree, then dug a small grave for the little bird right in front of them. Seeing this, Khan looked uneasy. "Young Master Jin, do you really want to leave them out here like this? The storm is getting worse." Jin's face didn't betray any emotion. He declared that his older brothers needed to endure this punishment to understand the gravity of what they had done. Knowing he couldn't change Jin's mind, Khan had no choice but to follow him back inside Storm Castle. But just moments ago, Khan had clearly felt a powerful energy radiating from Jin, and he was certain it wasn't aura. Could that have been mana? Khan thought to himself that if it was mana, this was no longer a simple sibling squabble. He needed to report this to the Patriarch immediately. Right after, Khan ordered his men to bring him a horse. Despite the heavy downpour, it seemed he was planning to ride straight back to the Runcandel estate. This was exactly what Jin had expected. He knew very well that Khan was more than just a guardian knight protecting the children at Storm Castle. He was also there to monitor them. In Khan's eyes, Jin's energy felt like magic, so there was no way he would let this go. But in reality, it was spiritual power, the sole proof of the contract between Jin and Soldaret. Thanks to that power, Jin knew the contract was still active in this lifetime. What is more, the curse immunity Soldaret granted him under the contract had freed him from the bladed illusion curse. In short, the useless failure of the Runcandel family was no more. He was absolutely sure that in this life, his path would be completely different from his past. And if that was the case, the first thing he needed to do was meet his father. Before long, Khan met with the patriarch of the Runcandel family and reported everything, along with his suspicions. The patriarch remained silent for a few seconds to think, then ordered Khan to assemble the knights. He wanted to go meet his youngest son himself. Soon after, the older Runcandel siblings who made up the vanguard assembled. There were 7 of them in total, leading 200 knights under their command. "Let us head to Storm Castle," then, the Runcandel patriarch declared majestically. The gravity of the situation was clear, as the patriarch's command was an emergency summons. Because of this, his older children each had their own thoughts and concerns. "Do you know anything about this, Brother Dipus?" "I just asked Luna, but I bet she doesn't know either." "How annoying. I was busy fighting mages and got summoned back like this," Mary Runcandel complained. She was the 7th child of the family. "The Tona twins are leaving Storm Castle next year, so father might be heading there for that, or maybe to see our youngest brother." Dipus calmly replied. He was the 4th child of the family. "The youngest? Right, him. At his first birthday selection ceremony, that kid chose the founder's sword. How could I forget that? But would father really return just for that? Well, there is no telling what father is thinking." They kept bickering until Luna Runcandel, the eldest sibling of the family, gestured for them to quiet down. Mary didn't dare say another word, but she kept staring at her father's back, still wondering. She couldn't understand why he had to travel all the way to Storm Castle just to see Jin. Was the kid really that outstanding? As for the patriarch's arrival, Jin was not surprised at all. So, while a surprised and excited Gilly adjusted his clothes, Jin remained incredibly calm. Jin knew that Khan was an upright man, so he likely wouldn't claim outright that Jin had used magic. He would only report what he saw. And that very report would raise a massive question mark, forcing the patriarch to come in person, to investigate what kind of power his youngest son was wielding, besides swordsmanship and aura, and also to see if that power or Jin himself could be a valuable asset to the family's future. Just as Gilly finished getting Jin ready, the patriarch arrived. The army of knights accompanying him was truly intimidating. But the patriarch's first act wasn't to see his youngest son. Instead, he ordered the twins, Daytona and Haytona, to be brought before him. "Daytona, Haytona, I heard you had a fight with Jin. Tell me, what did you do wrong?" These two were usually incredibly arrogant, but standing before their father, they couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Even so, they stubbornly insisted they were innocent, and claimed that Jin had attacked them first. They also made sure to emphasize that Jin's power was highly unusual, saying it felt like magic rather than aura. Both of them knew very well that using magic was strictly forbidden in the Runcandel family, which was why they kept trying to press this point. "That's right, father. If Jin is using magic, we must interrogate him immediately before he finds a way to hide it." Standing nearby, Mary and Dipus could only shake their heads and sigh in disappointment. Everyone probably knew how notoriously devious and cruel the twins were. They were literally competing to point fingers at him, but their father suddenly shut them down completely. "Cut it out. You two better listen to me very carefully. If you keep acting like this, you won't survive in the Runcandel clan." The twins looked shocked to see their father wasn't taking their side, but he had no intention of listening to their excuses anyway. His main reason for returning today was to meet his youngest son. Right after that, the patriarch ordered his men to bring Jin out. Walking into the main hall, Jin saw the Tona twins gritting their teeth as they stomped back inside. This was honestly no surprise. Even in his past life, Jin knew his father, Jin Runcandel, was the strongest yet most heartless man alive. He was known as the Genesis Knight, the absolute peak of a demigod. Before being granted those glorious titles, he was just an ordinary human. But after receiving his title, Chiron slowly lost all human emotion, turning into a man who cared only about the glory and future of the clan. So to him, someone with zero talent in swordsmanship like Jin in his past life was just a worthless piece of trash. The twins were probably deeply shaken by their father's coldness, but that was nothing compared to what Jin had endured in his past life. Except this time, it was different. In this life, no one would ever look down on him again, not even Jin Runcandel. In the main hall, countless eyes were waiting for Jin. He had the body of a 7-year-old child, but his soul belonged to a man nearly 30 years old, so of course, he wasn't intimidated by this situation at all. Jin opened the doors to the main hall, took calm, steady steps forward, and knelt before his father, saying, "I greet the patriarch." This time, Chiron was the one taken aback when he heard his youngest son call him patriarch instead of father. With all his siblings, numerous guardians, and over 100 clan members present, "I assumed you came here today on official clan business, father, so I thought calling you patriarch was more appropriate," Jin explained. Hearing such an answer from a 7-year-old shocked everyone. Chiron was highly impressed, though his face remained completely expressionless. "But I came here today for another reason, so you may call me father. I will ask you the same question I asked your brothers. What do you think you did wrong?" Jin clenched his hands into fists. Then, in front of over 200 people in the hall, he confidently declared that he only did it for revenge. Mary couldn't help but smirk at this spectacular scene. She realized the youngest of the family was actually quite formidable. "Father, a Runcandel always repays kindness with kindness and vengeance with vengeance," Jin said. His answer made Chiron fall silent for about 5 seconds. He then ordered everyone to leave, keeping only his youngest son in the room. The knights exchanged puzzled looks, wondering if the youngest young master had actually passed the patriarch's trial. No one dared to guess what Chiron was thinking, but they all felt Jin's boldness in confronting his father was seriously impressive. Once they were the only two left in the hall, Chiron spoke. "I sent everyone away because I have a private question for you. The Tona twins told me that you possess an unusual power. Our Runcandel clan strictly forbids magic. If you touch it, you will never reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. So, what power did you use?" Chiron didn't hesitate to threaten Jin, making it clear that if he had actually dabbled in magic, there would be severe consequences. But Jin knew he would be fine. In fact, once his father found out about this power, he wouldn't be able to ignore it. And so, right before Chiron's eyes, Jin summoned the power Soldaret had granted him through their contract, saying, "Father, I don't really know what this is. I'm not sure if it's magic or aura. If you don't mind, could you help me identify this power?" Chiron stared at the surge of power manifesting in his son's palm, his eyes widening in utter disbelief, because he realized that this was the very power belonging to the founder of the Runcandel clan. Looking at the dark power overflowing from his youngest son, combined with the fact that he had chosen the sword of Barasada at just 1 year old, Jin Runcandel couldn't help but wonder, did this truly mean this child was destined to become the master of the clan? Seeing Chiron completely lost in thought, Jin quietly reminded him, "Father, my power belongs to Soldaret, the god of shadows." Chiron replied. Even though Jin knew his power was granted by Soldaret, this was the first time he learned that the entity was also known as the god of shadows. According to his father, many years ago, Soldaret had formed a contract with the founder of the Runcandel clan, Lord Temar, and had supported the clan ever since. But because Temar passed away shortly after, Soldaret never appeared in Runcandel again. As a descendant, Chiron didn't know the reason behind this either, but he felt that Soldaret was now trying to connect with the Runcandel clan once more. This time, through Jin. "Father, I'm curious about one thing," Jin asked shyly. "Is that deity, is that god stronger than you?" Chiron hesitated for a moment, then replied that he didn't know, since he had never fought a god before. Hearing this answer, a wry smile crept onto Jin's face. "Never fought a god?" That had to be the most arrogant answer he had ever heard in his life. But then, out of nowhere, Chiron reached out and patted Jin's head in a baffling gesture. My child. That's a good question. Thanks to your innocent question, I just found a fantastic topic to talk about. Coming to visit you today was definitely the right call. Then, Chiron turned the tables and asked Jin a question of his own. How did he plan to use Solderate's shadow energy? Naturally, having already lived an entire lifetime, Jin knew exactly how to play this smart. So, he claimed he wanted to use that power for the good of the clan, figuring his father would be absolutely thrilled with such an answer. But suddenly, Chiron burst out laughing. Aha, what a ridiculous lie. You beat your brothers to a pulp and threw them out into the storm, and now you claim you'll use this power for the clan? Come on, tell me the truth. Of course, Chiron wasn't about to let him off that easily. Jin clenched his fists, feeling a bit tense, but then answered with absolute determination, I want to use this power for myself. With an innocent yet dead serious face, his voice rang out with absolute steel. Chiron scrutinized his son with his sharp, hawk-like eyes for a long moment before finally replying, Fine, I like that answer. Starting today, I will be watching you closely. With that, Chiron turned and walked away. Only when he was absolutely sure he was alone in the Great Hall did Jin finally let out a long, heavy sigh. Standing in front of his father was terrifyingly tense, but he figured he had safely passed the first hurdle. Not only did he get permission to use the shadow energy however he pleased, but he had also made his father place high expectations on him. This was an outcome Jin had never expected, especially since in his past life, Chiron hadn't even spared him a glance after realizing he had zero talent for swordsmanship. As the night grew deeper, the rain poured even harder. Before the knights departed, Mary lingered behind to give Jin something, calling it a special gift just for him. Hey, baby bro, cook this up, chew it well, and get strong as fast as you can. Got it? Leaving him with those words and a mischievous smile, Mary turned and left with Chiron. Once he got back to the storm castle, he and Gilly opened the box Mary had given him. To their utter shock, inside was a glowing, crimson phoenix heart. Jin couldn't have imagined this in a million years. Handing a phoenix heart to a 7-year-old kid was the kind of absolute madness that only Mary could pull off. Mary Runcandel, Jin's 7th older sister, was a 6-star knight, famously known as Wind Fury. But she had another nickname that barely anyone knew, the Madwoman of the Southern Territory. The reason this battle-crazy sister of his gave him a phoenix heart seemed pretty obvious. She was warning him to get strong fast so he could be a worthy opponent for her. If he consumed this at such a young age, not only would he gain fire resistance, but it would also act as an elixir that boosted his power as he grew. Speaking of which, this thing was actually super useful, as it was essential for a 6-star magician to safely summon a phoenix. Jin still planned to secretly train in magic, and he hoped that in this lifetime, he would actually be able to summon a phoenix. Before long, Gilly brought in a bowl of soup made from the phoenix heart. She had seemed panicky earlier, but once she calmed down, she realized Lady Mary had actually given her young master an incredible gift. Jin was about to start eating his dinner, but the ravenous stares of the Tona twins made it impossible to swallow a single bite. My dear brothers, if you have something to say, just spit it out already. Daytona and Haytona looked a bit embarrassed, but they figured throwing away their pride was a small price to pay for a taste of phoenix heart. So, they smoothly started begging, completely acting as if the whole incident with that poor bird had never even happened. Well, it's nothing, but that meal looks a bit too much for you to finish all by yourself, don't you think? Yeah, I saw Gilly carrying a pretty massive bowl. Do you guys want some? Jin had no trouble reading their minds, and as if they were just waiting for him to say those exact words, the twins nodded their heads frantically. Sure, you can have some, but you have to do something for me first. And with that, Jin made the two of them dig a tunnel not too far from the storm castle that very night. Grumbling and cursing, they dug away. Why? Why the hell do we have to do this? Exactly. There's literally nothing here. So why are we doing this? And what if someone catches us digging? What are you talking about? If someone finds out, the youngest is the one who gets punished. What could possibly happen to us? I guess you're right. We just need to do what he says so we can get that phoenix heart soup. But seriously, don't you think our little brother has been acting kind of terrifying lately? Despite their endless complaining, neither of them stopped digging, all for a single taste of the phoenix heart. Little did they know, the spot they were so diligently digging up was right outside a secret chamber. Inside, the body of a mysterious man was being preserved with extreme care. It wasn't until midnight that the twins finally returned, looking like absolute wrecks. Just one look at them, and you could tell they were utterly exhausted, gasping for breath. The only thing they wanted right now was that soup. Jin had already finished his meal and saved some for his two older brothers. Except, he only left them exactly one single spoonful each. The Tona brothers stared at each other, their anger instantly flaring up. "Hey, little brother. Just one spoonful? Is that a bit too little? I said I would give you some, but I never said how much. Still, I kept my promise, didn't I? So, enjoy your meal," Jin replied, with a completely straight face. The two boys were fuming, but they still had to say thank you for those two measly spoonfuls of soup. As for Jin, he had achieved his goal by making them do grunt work for practically nothing. The rain was still pouring hard. Jin threw on his coat and walked toward the tunnel his brothers had just dug. It seemed the Phoenix Heart soup really was a powerful motivator. He originally thought they would do a sloppy job, but they actually did a great job. The cave entrance was now right in front of him, and with this thickness, even a one-star spell would be enough to blast it open. Jin looked left and right, making sure no one was following him. He used to feel so helpless because the mana in his body kept growing, yet he couldn't do a single thing with it. Finally, today he had the chance to release a little bit of it. Jin's surging mana instantly shattered the cave entrance. In front of him, a massive door appeared, the entrance to the secret chamber of the Runcandel family. In his past life, he never had the chance to enter this place, so standing in front of this door, Jin felt a bit nervous. To open the chamber door, you needed a password. Jin recalled his memories from his past life, took a deep breath, and said, "A child of Runcandel has come to control Murakhan." With a loud boom, the heavy gate rumbled and opened right before Jin. The Runcandel secret chamber was where the clan stored the secret scrolls of the families they had defeated over thousands of years. The inside was massive. Originally, only the clan's vanguard, which included the adult Runcandel children with advanced swordsmanship skills, were allowed to enter. In his past life, Jin never had that privilege, but one of his older brothers had revealed quite a lot about this room, thinking Jin could never set foot in here anyway, even if he knew. Yet, now it had become the key that allowed him to sneak into this chamber, even though he was still underage. Once inside, the first thing that caught Jin's eye was a mysterious man sealed inside a giant glass tube. As he got closer, he could see that this man's face was covered in countless tiny black scales. This made Jin wonder if he was even human, and why something like this existed inside the Runcandel secret chamber. But suddenly, Jin recalled the passcode to enter this chamber. A child of Runcandel has come to control Murakhan. A thought flashed through Jin's mind. Could this actually be the Shadow Dragon, Murakhan? Rumor had it that the Shadow Dragon Murakhan was defeated by the first patriarch of the Runcandel family and fell into a deep sleep. But until now, Jin had never believed those rumors were real. After observing the man for a long time, he felt now wasn't the time to focus on him, so he turned back to his main goal, searching for the secret scrolls. Jin had no idea that the exact moment he turned away, the Shadow Dragon Murakhan's fingers twitched slightly. Finally, he entered the room filled with the secret scrolls of various families. First, he searched for the Ken family, since they were also a family of swordsmen. But after reading for a while, Jin felt this stuff seemed quite difficult compared to 3-star magic theory. He wanted to take it back to study it slowly, but doing that would make it too easy to get caught. So, Jin took out a blank notebook he had prepared beforehand. He decided he would copy a portion of the secret scrolls every time he came here. For the next few days, Jin continued to secretly go back and forth between Storm Castle and the secret chamber, until one day, while he was copying a scroll, he heard footsteps approaching from behind. Jin jumped up in a panic. He thought someone had discovered him entering and leaving the secret chamber. And just as he opened the door, intending to peek out and check, a pair of glowing eyes and a towering figure appearing behind the crack of the door scared Jin half to death. "Hey, you, who the hell are you?" Jin was so tense, he forgot to breathe. The Shadow Dragon Murakhan had actually awakened. In his past life, he had never heard of Murakhan awakening. So, in this situation, he didn't know how to react. Even though he was terrified, Jin forced himself to calm down. After all, Murakhan was the guardian dragon of the Runcandel family, so Jin figured the dragon might let him go if he showed respect and just acted like a kid. "A child of Runcandel greets the guardian of the clan," Jin said, his voice trembling slightly. Then, he could even hear Murakhan grinding his teeth. "You dare call me a guardian? You just called me your clan's guardian. How dare you treat me like some run-of-the-mill guardian deity? You damn Runcandel brat, how dare you speak to me like that?" I can't even take my anger out on a little kid like you. But you're driving me absolutely crazy. Murakhan's voice pierced Jin's eardrums. It seemed that treating the shadow dragon Murakhan as a mere gatekeeper made him feel insulted. After ranting loudly for a while, Murakhan was so tired that he squatted down, huffing and puffing. This is so frustrating. Seriously, it has been a long time since I last smelled something this good, and yet, the only thing I find is just a kid? With that, Murakhan suddenly gets right up in Jin's face, making the boy hold his breath in fear. Why on earth do you smell like shadow energy? Even though I have been asleep for 1,000 years, I still remember this scent perfectly. This unique shadow energy should only belong to a contractor like Temar. The Temar whom Murakhan just mentioned is actually the founding ancestor of Jin's clan. Murakhan's words suddenly make everything click for Jin. Could the real reason this dragon woke up be because of the influence of his own shadow energy? Of course, Murakhan does not think for a second that a mere child like Jin could actually form a contract with Solderit. So, he starts using his dragon nose, which is as sharp as a hound's, to sniff around the room, trying to find where that shadow energy is coming from. Jin feels a wave of anxiety. He is hesitant to show his hand because he still does not know how Murakhan feels about Solderet's power. But after a moment, Jin decides to take a gamble. Lord Murakhan, is this what you are looking for? My father told me this power comes from Solderet, the god of shadows. Murakhan freezes, staring at the sphere of dark power manifesting in Jin's palm. Then, he begins to tremble. Solderet. Are you kidding me right now? No, you must be serious. The 1,000-year promise is actually with this little kid? Both Jin and Murakhan fall into a deep, silent contemplation. After what feels like forever, the dragon finally speaks up. Hey kid. Yes, Lord Murakhan, Jin replies politely. You see, I actually made a promise to Solderet, and it looks like you and I will need to work together to fulfill it. Murakhan adds that he will explain the details later, since he has just woke up from a 1,000-year slumber and his brain is still completely fried. Besides, he does not think Jin is old enough to fully grasp the whole situation anyway. Even so, he feels it is only right to properly introduce himself to Solderet's new contractor. With that, Murakhan slowly stands up, and his body begins to shift and transform. I am Murakhan, the representative of Solderet, his close friend, and the last descendant of the first shadow beasts. By the terms of our 1,000-year pact, I will be your companion from this day forward. With those words, Murakhan's true, majestic form reveals itself right before Jin's eyes. Jin trembles slightly, overwhelmed with emotion. Just moments ago, he was terrified that Murakhan and Solderet might have been enemies. If that were the case, the dragon probably would have wiped him out in a heartbeat for carrying Solderet's power. But fortunately, he is a friend, not a foe. He had played his cards right. Tell me your name, Solderet's contractor. Jin Runcandel, Jin replies, a satisfied smile finally gracing his face. I am the 13th child and the youngest member of the Runcandel family. It is an honor to be your companion. The Black Dragon, Murakhan, is a legendary entity. Even Mount Murakhan, the sacred land of roaring winds, was named in honor of this mighty beast. He had ruled over this region since ancient times. However, 1,000 years ago, Murakhan was defeated in a duel against Temar Runcandel. According to historical records, after the storm castle was destroyed, Murakhan fell into a deep hibernation. But after actually meeting Murakhan, Jin realizes that the history books are not entirely accurate. It seems those who form contracts with the gods, like Temar and himself, are destined to partner with a dragon. While there are still many unanswered questions surrounding this arrangement, destiny bringing him together with the Black Dragon, Murakhan, is undoubtedly a massive win. The very next day, Jin returns to the secret chamber, bringing a box of food for the dragon. Knowing they will be spending a lot of time together from now on, Jin decides to satisfy some of his curiosity. His first question is about the legendary battle between Murakhan and his founding ancestor, Temar, all those years ago. But since so much time has passed, and Murakhan has slept himself into a total brain fog, he cannot seem to remember a single thing. After several failed attempts at conversation, Jin can only be sure of one thing about this legendary beast. He is absolutely obsessed with the strawberry pies Jin brings him. Murakhan also starts getting curious about why Jin sneaks into the archives every day to secretly copy down forbidden tomes. I take it you understand a bit of what is in these books, he asks. Only about 30% of it. The rest is a complete mystery to me, Jin sighs. Hey, do not lose hope. For a kid your age, Grasping 30% of this advanced stuff is already a major achievement. Most kids could never do that because they are way too lazy, Murakami says, trying to reassure him. But Jin does not feel comforted by those words at all. That is because Murakami is comparing him to ordinary children, whereas Jin is a son of the legendary clan that literally rules over half the continent. He has 12 older siblings to compete with, not to mention his parents and the powerful clan elders. If he ever hopes to surpass them, he has to push himself far beyond his limits. Murakami, when the founder of our clan was my age, how much of these books could he understand? Jin asks out of nowhere, desperately wanting to know how he measures up to the man considered to be the strongest human in history. But Murakami's answer catches him completely off guard. Temar, I seriously doubt that guy could even read a single line of these books when he was your age. But then again, books only get you so far. Murakami recalls that Temar rarely ever picked up a book, yet he was still an absolute beast in battle. He then bluntly adds that while Jin has the same potential as Temar, the kid is still nowhere near as naturally gifted as his ancestor. Jin's high hopes instantly plummet, leaving him feeling utterly deflated. So, I will never become as great as the founder? Murakami stared at him for a long time. Then, he reached out and patted Jin's head. No, you're Solderit's contractor, just like Temar was. And you're easily smart enough to read those secret books. You're still just a kid, so don't rush. Just focus on training hard. And one day, you'll be as strong as Temar. Hell, you might even surpass him. Murakami's words weren't just empty comfort, he meant every single word. After all, Solderet, the god of shadows who bestowed his power upon Jin, also goes by another name, Infinity. His power knows no bounds. And because of that, those who form a contract with Solderet have limitless potential as well. Of course, in Murakami's eyes, Jin was still just a child, so it was only natural for him to feel down or lose patience along the way. So, he decided to cheer Jin up by teaching him a new ultimate move, how to release the shadow energy dwelling inside him. Murakami said, every creature that can manipulate shadow energy has to get used to it, but it's extremely dangerous if you don't learn it properly. This meant Jin had to start from the absolute basics and take it very seriously. Being the obedient student, Jin asked, Then, Lord Murakami, what should I do first? You? First, you have to learn how to release your mana. Why is that? Jin wondered. He had assumed Solderet's shadow energy had nothing to do with magic, yet Murakami was telling him that releasing mana was his very first step. Besides, he had already done this countless times in his past life. Releasing shadow energy means unlocking and moving your mana. You have to master both. From now on, you'll need to practice this for 2 to 3 years. Jin frowned slightly. 2 to 3 years? For someone like him who was desperate to get strong as quickly as possible, that felt like an eternity. Meanwhile, Murakami kept rambling on. You don't even know the basics, so I can't teach you anything advanced yet. Simply put, the next thing you need to learn is how to release your mana. But right as those words left his mouth, a sphere of magic materialized in Jin's palm. He had a completely deadpan look on his face, as if it was no big deal. Like this? Now, can you teach me the advanced stuff? Murakami was utterly dumbfounded. He leaned in close, inspecting the magic sphere intently, repeatedly demanding to know how Jin had managed to do it. Of course, Jin couldn't just admit that he was a regressor and had already unlocked this ability in his previous life. So, he just gave a vague, dismissive answer to brush it off. But to Murakami, Jin had just cemented himself as a once-in-a-generation genius. After that, he decided to personally demonstrate what releasing shadow energy actually looked like. Jin had achieved his goal of baiting Murakami into teaching him how to master shadow energy, so he was absolutely thrilled. Even though he had been asleep for 1,000 years, it seemed Murakami's power hadn't waned in the slightest. Shadow energy, as the name suggests, originates from darkness, and all darkness in this world is born from Solderet. In other words, Solderet is the ultimate master of all shadows, and right now, Jin is the only person bound to him by contract, which means, in a way, you are also the master of all the world's darkness. As Murakami spoke, a colossal wave of shadow energy erupted from him. Although the sensation was overwhelming, it filled Jin with pure excitement. As time went on, while Jin was busy mastering Solderet's power, his older siblings weren't just sitting around either. For instance, his eldest sister, Luna, was currently on a mission to clear out monsters from a massive territory. According to her night's report, Luna's squad only had 5 more areas left to clear before the mission was complete. Then 4 months should be enough. Luna calculated quietly before telling the knights. Take a break. Then, remembering something, she turned to her subordinate. By the way, what do 9-year-old kids usually like? Half a year after Jin's fateful meeting with Murakhan, the Tona twins were finally old enough to leave Storm Castle. Having finally escaped Jin's clutches, they looked incredibly relieved. With those two gone, there was much less annoyance to deal with. Not long after, Gilly and the other servants threw a celebration for Jin's 9th birthday. Just as they were about to cut the cake, Khan rushed in with some urgent news. Lady Luna had arrived for a visit. Luna showing up to celebrate Jin's 9th birthday caught him completely off guard. After all, everyone knew how insanely busy the eldest child of the Runcandel family and a 9-star knight usually was. Luna was known as the White Whale, a nickname likely inspired by her platinum white hair. Even though she was the strongest among the Runcandel siblings, she had absolutely zero interest in becoming the patriarch. Because of that, Luna had long stepped away from the filthy mudslinging of the succession war. In Jin's eyes, his eldest sister was truly a solitary white whale, and for that very reason, Luna had never paid any attention to her younger siblings. Her relationship with her 12 younger siblings could be described as distant strangers rather than blood relatives. In his past life, Jin and Luna were no exception. Yet today, of all days, on his birthday, that very sister had decided to visit Storm Castle, without any warning. At first, Jin thought some major crisis had hit the family, or that Luna had caught him sneaking into the clan's secret vault. But when the two siblings faced each other, the first thing Luna said was, "You've grown so much, kiddo." Jin replied, "If I'd known you were coming, I would have dressed up a bit." Luna said, "Aren't you cute?" Then walked over and patted his head. "Do I really need to give a warning just to visit my youngest brother?" Luna's warm words and actions were so different from her usual cold demeanor, leaving Jin completely stunned. Seeing his shocked expression, his older sister mistakenly thought he wasn't feeling well. "Why do you look so tired? Are you sick?" "Oh no," Jin quickly shook his head. "Actually, I'm just a bit nervous because this is the first time we've been this close. For some reason, my heart is racing." This time, it was Luna's turn to be taken aback. In the Runcandel family, siblings were raised to watch their backs and even step over each other. It was only natural for Jin to think she was here to evaluate him and feel anxious about it. A wave of sadness washed over Luna's heart. She clenched her fists, and after a long silence, she finally spoke. "Yeah, I guess I wasn't being very thoughtful. You might still be young, but I forgot that you're also a Runcandel." With that, Luna suddenly dropped to one knee to meet Jin's gaze, telling him she needed to speak with him in private. Understanding her cue, Jin immediately dismissed the guards, maids, and even Gilly. Though he didn't know what was driving Luna's unusual behavior, it didn't seem like she had any bad intentions. Once the two of them were alone in the room, Luna's expression grew serious. She explained that when Sciron Runcandel visited his youngest son last time, Jin's outstanding performance had drawn the attention of all his other siblings. This meant that in 1 year, when Jin was old enough to leave the Storm Castle, he would become a prime target for his siblings. "Kiddo," Luna said, her voice filled with deep concern. "I really hope you don't lose your own happiness by getting dragged into the family's succession war. I truly wish you wouldn't get hurt by these brutal Runcandel traditions." Hearing Luna's words, Jin was momentarily at a loss for words. Could the reason she gave up on the patriarch position really be that simple? And if she didn't want Jin involved in the sibling rivalry, why hadn't she warned him even once in his past life? Was it because he wasn't even worth talking to back then? Or because the others didn't even view him as a threat? But whatever the reason, Jin could feel Luna's absolute sincerity as she sat right in front of him. So, Jin gently patted Luna's hand, which was tightly holding his. "Sister Luna, I really appreciate what you're saying, but I have absolutely no intention of staying out of this fight. Jin, I'm serious. I'm not saying this because I'm worried about you opposing me. I know, but I've already survived one assassination attempt. That's why I can't just walk away from this mess." In truth, the assassination attempt Jin referred to was the bladed illusion curse, and it had already been broken in his previous life. Hearing this, Luna's eyes widened in utter shock before quickly turning into pure rage. Jin could even feel the terrifying bloodlust radiating from his older sister. Who is foolish enough to try and take your life here at the Storm Castle? Tell me, Jin, who tried to kill you? After all, the Storm Castle was supposed to protect young Runcandels, preventing them from being targeted too early in the succession war. So, hearing her younger brother, who had never even left the Storm Castle, say that he had been targeted for assassination, It was only natural for Luna to fly into a rage. To be honest, I haven't been able to find out who it was yet, but I'm perfectly fine, sister, Jin comforted her. Besides, not all of my siblings hate me. Aren't you one of those who don't? Thank you for letting me know how much you care. It truly warms my heart. Hearing such mature words from a 9-year-old child only made Luna's heart ache even more. She didn't know what to say except to pull Jin into a tight embrace, gently stroking his hair over and over. This was the first time Jin realized how deeply warm Luna could be, so he hugged her back, savoring a rare moment of genuine familial warmth. All right, today is a happy day. We shouldn't be talking about such heavy things. As she let go of Jin, Luna pulled a small box from her robe. She explained that her main reason for coming today was actually to give Jin a gift. Inside the box was a necklace featuring a deep blue stone, but it was no ordinary gem. Luna instructed him, whenever you run into trouble that you can't handle alone, just smash the blue gem on this necklace, and I'll immediately come to your side. So, keep it with you at all times. Luna helped Jin put it around his neck, giving him a gentle reminder. Happy 9th birthday, my little brother. Soon after, Gilly brought in a slice of cake. The two siblings ate and chatted happily, looking just like any other ordinary brother and sister. After a while, Luna reluctantly took her leave. That night, Jin made his way to the clan's secret vault once again. The moment Murakhan saw him, he shrieked, "Why are you so late today? And what on earth is that wrapped around your neck?" "Oh, it is my birthday present," Jin replied. "Whoever gave you that must really cherish you to gift you something like this." Murakhan trembled with excitement as he pointed at the gem. Seeing his bizarre reaction, Jin pressed for answers. That was how he learned this blue gem was actually a relic of the demon king Orgel. Over 1,000 years ago, countless people risked their lives just to get their hands on one of his relics. The incredible thing about this artifact is that it grants the wearer resistance to magic attacks of 5 stars and below. It also boosts the wearer's magic power and even grants summoning abilities. The reason Murakhan knew so much was because he had lived through the same era as Orgel. Someone with incredibly powerful energy must have given this to you, right? Murakhan asked. Yeah, my oldest sister just stopped by. Wait, you can sense her energy from all the way down here? Jin handed the birthday cake to Murakhan, asking in utter shock. Exactly. In fact, I'm sure your sister sensed me too. His words made Jin extremely anxious. He feared that Luna would report this to the family, but Murakhan dismissed it, saying he was worrying for absolutely nothing. After all, someone who would gift him a relic of the Demon King Orgel would never snitch and leave him to be torn apart by the clan. Jin had to admit that made a lot of sense. Murakhan also added that out of all his siblings, Jin could truly trust Luna. Just as Murakhan predicted, Luna had indeed sensed a powerful energy unlike anything she had ever felt before while at the Storm Castle. She also suspected her youngest brother was up to something, but decided it was best to just pretend she knew nothing. That day, Luna made a firm decision. No matter what Jin did or what he became, she would always take the side of her youngest brother in this brutal clan war. Another year flew by in the blink of an eye. The time at the Storm Castle, which Jin once thought would be incredibly boring, had actually given him so much. The recognition and high expectations from Khan, the Phoenix Heart Mary brought him, his close bond with Luna, and even his fateful meeting with the dragon warrior, Murakhan. These were things he wouldn't have dared to dream of in his past life. And now, he was preparing to leave the Storm Castle and return to the main castle. During his training sessions with Khan, Jin remained incredibly diligent and dead serious. After a few sessions, Khan finally understood why the patriarch favored Jin the most out of all 13 children. Even though Khan was the one evaluating their sparring sessions, Jin's gaze made it feel as if he was the one grading the old man's teaching skills. And that was why, when today's session came to an end, Khan did something he had never done for any other young master. Young Master Jin, teaching you has been the greatest honor of my life. You will be leaving the Storm Castle very soon, but I promise to do my absolute best to teach you until the very last moment. As he spoke, Khan bowed deeply with utmost respect. Very well, I will be in your care until then. Some more time passed, and at last, tomorrow was the day Jin would leave the Storm Castle. Today, while Gilly was packing their bags, Jin sat there, playing with a lit candle. Even though he held his finger directly over the burning flame, Jin didn't feel any heat at all. It seemed Mary's gift was finally starting to show its effects. He figured he had absorbed about half of the medicinal power of the Phoenix Heart, and the rest would be fully integrated over the next few years. While cleaning, Gilly mentioned that she would make some strawberry pie for Jin's snack. This suddenly reminded him of Murakhan, who was still chilling in the storage room. Even though it was late at night, Jin made an excuse to go for a quick walk and sprinted straight to the chamber. Actually, Jin had already mentioned to Murakhan that he would be leaving the storm castle soon. It looked like the dragon was just as excited for that day to come. "How do you plan on following me?" The moment Jin asked, Murakhan began to show off like a peacock flaunting its tail. "Don't be so dramatic. I am the legendary Black Dragon. Even if I've grown a bit weaker, a minor thing like this is a piece of cake. I guarantee I'll follow you without a single soul noticing." "Wait, did you just say you got weaker? Why didn't you tell me something so important?" After spending so much time together, Jin now dared to sass Murakhan instead of humbly calling him sir, like before. "You little brat, how could I be in perfect shape after sleeping for 1,000 years? Fortunately, Murakhan mentioned that his strength could still recover. And as for Jin, he would eventually become even stronger than Murakhan, since the dragon was his guardian beast, after all. So hurry up and become a powerful magic swordsman, just like Temar. Speaking of which, Murakhan once mentioned that the Runcandel clan was originally a family of magic swordsmen, rather than pure swordsmen like they are today. He had also heard Solderit mention this in his previous life. His family originally started out as a magic swordsman clan, and their very first patriarch, Temar Runcandel, was the strongest magic swordsman in history. Nowadays, almost no one knows this truth anymore. Murakhan also explained that the reason the Runcandel family abandoned magic to pursue pure swordsmanship was because of an oath sworn 1,000 years ago. "Well, even though my dragon race acts as the guardian of the clan, I am pretty sure they would be incredibly annoyed if I just showed up." Murakhan sighed, boasting that if this were 1,000 years ago, both he and Jin would be worshipped just for escorting the most noble being in the world. Seeing Murakhan ramble on like this, it was clear that Jin was the only one actually worrying about them leaving Storm Castle together. The dragon had even planned to use his dragon magic to create an illusion, so anyone coming here would still see him fast asleep in that giant glass jar. "What if your illusion gets discovered?" Jin asked, just wanting to be sure, but his question seemed to bruise the pride of this easily offended dragon. "Hey, I am the Great Black Dragon, you know? Illusions are a piece of cake, so do not worry." However, since Murakhan had not fully recovered his strength, he could not guarantee how long his illusion would last. He just promised to maintain it for as long as he could, so that if his disappearance from the chamber were ever discovered, no one would suspect Jin had anything to do with it. Hearing this, Jin finally felt a bit more relieved. With the main issues sorted out, he pulled out a box of strawberry pies, Murakhan's absolute favorite, along with a bottle of homemade strawberry wine he had brewed himself. Murakhan's eyes lit up instantly. "What in the world did you bring me, kid? Raising you was definitely worth it." Early the next morning, Gilly carefully wrapped an extra coat around Jin before leading him to the castle gates. Over the years, Gilly had watched Jin train relentlessly at this place, but things at the main house would be far more brutal and chaotic, so she could not help but worry. "Gilly, do not worry. I will do my best at the main house," Jin reassured her. "Yes, and I will also dedicate my entire life to you, young master." Just as they finished speaking, their escort arrived. Guardian Knights Jerome and Holtz were tasked with safely escorting Jin back to the main castle, the Garden of Swords. And so, on October 30th, 1790, Jin finally left Storm Castle for the Runcandel clan's main territory, officially stepping into a bloody, brutal family succession war. They had not been traveling long when a heavy snow began to fall. Gilly noted that the roads would soon be buried in snow, forcing them to stop at a nearby village until it cleared. If the snow piled up too high, they would not even be able to use the transfer gate. Right then, the carriage violently jolted. Jerome and Holtz shouted that they were being ambushed, urging everyone to stay inside. Gilly immediately pulled Jin into a tight embrace to comfort him, saying, "Young master, do not worry, everything is going to be fine. Jerome and Holtz are 7-star knights, and you have me too." According to Gilly's observation, there were about 20 enemies, likely consisting of mages and warriors, and possibly some archers as well. Fortunately, none of them seemed to possess a strength exceeding 7-star. But looking out the carriage window, Jin noticed both knights were fully swept up in the battle. His face instantly paled. "Gilly, we need to get out of here, now." Gilly did not quite understand his reaction, but Jin had already noticed something highly unusual. Under no circumstances were Runcandel guardians allowed to leave those of Runcandel blood unprotected. No matter how many enemies there were, at least one of those two knights should have stayed by Jin's side. Yet, both of them had rushed off to join the fight, which meant either one of them had turned traitor, they were imposters, or neither of them was actually on their side. There must be weapons hidden in this carriage. We have to get out, Gilly. Seeing Jin's dead serious expression, Gilly did not dare hesitate for a single second. On a regular day, she was just a gentle nanny, but she was also a skilled warrior. In a crisis like this, Gilly had to risk her life to protect her young master. From her sleeves, 2 wolf claw-shaped weapons slid into her hands, and her gentle face hardened into a fierce mask. I will protect you as a proud member of the Runcandel house. Please forgive me if I step out of line, young master. With that, Gilly shredded the roof of the carriage with her claws, grabbed Jin, and leapt out into the storm. They bolted through the blinding blizzard, but after running for a while, Jin stopped and said he wanted to head back to the ambush site to double-check. What if those supposed attackers were actually their allies? If the attackers wanted them dead, they would have made a move the second they escaped the carriage. Yet everything was eerie and silent now. Gilly nodded in understanding and quickly escorted him back. Arriving back, they saw a one-eyed man barking out orders. Quick, find Jin Runcandel, 3rd Division, block their left flank. As they crept closer, Jin and Gilly spotted the devil and spade crests on their cloaks and armor, representing the Zipfel Magic Clan and the Black King mercenaries. Over there, we found Gilly McRolin, and Jin Runcandel is with her. The one-eyed man instantly leapt down from above, landing right in front of them. He was Mirka, a leader of the Black King mercenaries, who had been hired by the Runcandel clan to rescue the young master. Meanwhile, the 2 imposters claiming to be Jerome and Holtz had their cover completely blown. After all, if they really were 7-star Runcandel guardians, there was no way they would be struggling this much against these guys. Who on earth are you people? What is your goal? Gilly demanded. That bastard Jerome just burst out laughing, sneering that no one in their right mind would waste time answering a couple of Runcandel dogs. Even though Mukera and his squad could easily handle the situation, their young master, Jin, was right here, making his decision the only one that truly mattered. Jin showed absolutely no mercy, ordering Gilly to execute one of them to clear some space and chop off the other one's arms before dragging him over. Instantly, Gilly looked as if her battle switch had just been flipped on. She charged at Jerome like a harbinger of death, taking him down with just 2 simple moves. The other attacker, Hose, went pale with sheer terror upon seeing that a Runcandel nanny was far more deadly than a trained warrior. Before he could even react, Gilly sliced off both of his arms without a shred of pity. Deprived of his limbs, Hose lost his balance and collapsed backward into the snow. Gilly grabbed him by his hair and dragged him over to Jin, saying, "Your master seems to have seriously underestimated his opponent. To even qualify as a servant in the Runcandel house, one must be at least a 7-star warrior." Jin mocked. "So if you want to try assassinating a Runcandel descendant next time, you should at least be at the 8-star level. Save your breath. This is only the beginning. The downfall of your family is near." Hose screamed in pure rage. Jin let out a cold chuckle and replied, "Ha, I actually hope so too. I've never really liked the idea of a Runcandel empire anyway. I only care about the Jin Runcandel empire." As he uttered those words, his gaze turned so bone-chillingly fierce that even Mukera shuddered in fear. But Hose seemed utterly fearless of death, spitting back defiantly, "You bastard, you will bow before the Zipfel." The name Zipfel, a family steeped in ancient grudges, was all too familiar to Jin. They were the legendary mage clan that ruled the other half of the world. While the Runcandel family was renowned for their ultimate swordsmanship, the Zipfel family was known for reaching the absolute pinnacle of magic. 1,000 years ago, after the death of Temar Runcandel, the Zipfels forced a humiliating covenant upon them, forcing the Runcandel clan to completely strip magic from their lineage. Since then, all magic within the Runcandel family had been sealed away. Because of this, the Zipfel family was a 1,000-year enemy to the Runcandels, and the feeling was entirely mutual. No wonder Jin had been wondering who would dare act so recklessly against him. It turned out they were fanatical followers of the Zipfels. If that was the case, interrogating him would be completely useless. So, Jin ordered Gilly to dump him somewhere in the wilderness and let him fend for himself. Naturally, considering the Runcandels their sworn enemies, the Zipfel family was constantly plotting to destroy them. However, this incident likely was not masterminded by the Zipfel family directly, but was rather a rogue action taken by their zealots. Still, Jin found it highly suspicious. No matter how well these rats hid themselves, there was no way they should have bypassed a 7-star knight like Gilly so easily. He suspected that someone must have had a hand in this. Gilly quickly completed her task and returned. That was when Jin turned his attention back to Mukera. Jin had managed to escape successfully this time because Mukera and his squad had drawn the attention of the two imposters away from him. As a result, Jin promised that once they returned to the Runcandel castle, he would report their achievements so they would receive a fitting reward. All right, now help me set up the teleportation portal. Yes, I will do my absolute best, Mukera replied, his voice stammering slightly. He truly could not believe that everything that had just unfolded was orchestrated by a mere 10-year-old child. Jin was far too confident and mature for his age. Even after surviving this ordeal, the boy remained completely unfazed. Mukera could not help but recall Jin's chilling words from earlier about building a Jin Runcandel empire. He shuddered, realizing those were not just empty boasts, but a goal that the young master was dead set on achieving. But in the end, that was family business. Mukera could only sigh, warning his men to be extremely careful with their actions and to avoid doing anything foolish until the teleportation gate was fully prepared. What? Captain, why make such a ridiculous demand? Since when do we have to worry about things like this? The Black King members asked, completely baffled. Just shut up and do what you are told. Mukera snapped back, silently cursing them for being so short-sighted. They had absolutely no idea just how terrifying that 10-year-old boy truly was. By then, Gilly had finished brushing off and adjusting Jin's clothes. With their carriage destroyed, the group had no choice but to travel on foot to the nearest village. A few of the men expressed concern about leaving Jerome and Hose behind, but Jin told them not to waste their energy worrying about them. Whether they were found dead or alive, their broken bodies would serve as a grim warning to their accomplices. As the snow fell heavier, Mukera estimated it would take another 2 hours to reach the village. But Jin did not utter a single complaint. Instead, his focus was on Gilly's somber expression, prompting him to offer her some comfort. Do not dwell on what happened during the escort anymore, Gilly. It was not your fault. Even a 9-star knight like Khan didn't notice anything back at the Storm Castle. So of course, a 7-star warrior like you would find it hard to spot anything unusual. Gilly probably knew this, but she still couldn't stop blaming herself and apologizing to Jin. She was exactly the same as in her past life. As a nanny of the Runcandel family, Gilly's fate was bound to the child she was raising. In Jin's past life, Gilly had been his nanny too. Because he had zero talent back then, she had to endure constant contempt and humiliation alongside him. Yet, Gilly never once complained or looked down on him, and on the day Jin was banished from the Runcandel clan, she was kicked out of the castle as well. Even then, she only cried and kept saying, "Young master, I am so sorry for not taking better care of you." Jin could never forget the sight of Gilly, head bowed, sobbing uncontrollably in the freezing snow. He didn't want to raise his voice at the one person who had always been so good to him. But things were completely different now, and Gilly needed to steel her resolve. Since speaking softly to comfort her wasn't working, Jin had no choice but to snap at her to snap her out of it. "Stop blaming yourself like this. That is an order. Gilly, as long as you are my nanny, you are the only guardian knight I need. If you let trivial things get to you like this, how do you expect to escort me in the future? So do not make me repeat myself. Is that clear?" Jin's firm and decisive words finally snapped Gilly out of her spiral. She quickly pulled herself together and continued walking forward with him. More than anyone, Gilly knew how much Jin cared about her, and she knew he said those harsh words for her own good. She wanted so badly to protect him, which was why she couldn't stop beating herself up. But after getting a stern wake-up call, Gilly found her resolve again, which brought a wave of relief to Jin. They walked for a long time before finally reaching a village. Gilly found an inn and rented a room for Jin to rest, while he sat there, deeply lost in thought about what had just happened. If Jin's hunch was correct, there was a high chance that he was involved in this. The transformation magician, Bouvard Gaston. Shapeshifting was a specialty of dragons, but even they couldn't pull off a flawless disguise. Bouvard was the only being capable of achieving a perfect transformation. He used that unique ability to disguise himself and commit various crimes, throwing the entire world into chaos. Jin hoped he was wrong, because if Bouvard really was behind this, things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. In his past life, when Jin turned 20, Vermont's Special Task Force finally captured Bouvard. It would be incredibly useful if he could make Bouvard an ally right now. However, Jin had no intention of teaming up with someone who had once pointed a sword at him, so before the man could cause any more trouble, Jin knew he had to investigate this thoroughly. As he was thinking, sleep suddenly overtook him. By the time Gilly took off her outer coat and said she was going to stand guard outside, Jin was already fast asleep. After all, His body was still that of a 10-year-old child, and today's events had left him completely exhausted. The next morning, Jin was woken up by a loud meowing outside the window. He sleepily opened his eyes and saw a black cat squirming behind the glass pane. This ridiculous behavior immediately reminded Jin of a certain someone. Murakhan had promised he would always stay hidden and follow him around. You said you'd stay hidden and follow me? And your genius plan was to turn into a cat like this? Jin struggled to hold back his laughter, while Murakhan, stuck outside, was absolutely fuming. After having a good laugh, Jin finally opened the window to let him in. Don't be mad, I was just surprised since I never expected you to show up looking like this. I thought you'd disguise yourself as one of my servants, like a stable boy or something. Hey, if I did that, every single night in your family would have their eyes on me. Murakhan gritted his teeth as he replied, then transformed back into his original form. But as he did, he carelessly tripped on an uneven floorboard and clumsily crashed straight into the windowsill. Hearing the sudden crash, Gilly, who was on high alert outside, instantly burst into the room. The foolish black dragon didn't have time to run or turn back into a cat, leaving him completely exposed right in front of her. You, who on earth are you, and why are you following my young master? Gilly's fierce protective mode instantly kicked in. Gilly aggressively pinned Murakhan to the ground and demanded, "Start talking right now before I end you." "Gilly, wait. He is." Jin quickly tried to intervene, but before he could even make up a decent cover story, Murakhan bolted upright at the sound of her name. "Gilly? Is this Gilly? Oh, my little strawberry pie. I've finally met you." As it turned out, this 1,000-year-old black dragon had a surprisingly soft spot for strawberry pies. Over the past 2 years, Jin had brought him countless pies, boasting that they were made by his nanny, Gilly. Ever since then, Murakhan had been dying to meet her in person. Faced with this absolute mess, Jin could only facepalm and sigh. Great, everything is turning upside down. Jin gestured toward Murakhan, who had messy hair and stood with his arms crossed, wearing an arrogant smirk, and introduced him. First of all, this is the guardian of the Runcandel clan, the Black Dragon Murakhan. Then, he turned and gestured toward Gilly, who was flustered. And this is. But before Jin could even finish his sentence, Murakhan impatiently cut him off. I know exactly who she is. She is my precious strawberry pie, right? Panicking, Gilly bowed deeply over and over, frantically apologizing. This humble servant of the Runcandel clan begs for forgiveness for being so disrespectful to the guardian. Please, forgive me, but he just threw his arms wide open, laughing heartily as he spoke casually. Don't worry, my little strawberry pie. I'm more than happy to forgive you. Growing thoroughly confused, Gilly raised a hand and asked, Lord Murakhan, may I ask why you keep calling me strawberry pie? He declared proudly, because you are wonderful, beautiful, and you make the absolute perfect strawberry pie. Gilly suddenly put the pieces together and whipped her head around to look at Jin. So he is the reason you ask for strawberry pie every single day? Jin quickly looked away, offering a guilty smirk. As the bright sunlight streamed softly onto the windowsill, Jin gently requested, Gilly, could you sit down for a moment so I can explain? While they sat down properly, Murakhan lazily sprawled out, propping his head up with one hand. Gasping in disbelief, Gilly covered her mouth. There is so much I didn't know about you, young master. Feeling guilty, Jin said. I'm sorry for keeping this from you. But Gilly didn't seem upset at all, unlike what he had expected. No, I've always known how incredibly talented you are, young master. But Gilly looked back and forth between the two, utterly flabbergasted by the odd duo before her. First magic, then becoming Solderet's contractor, and now, an actual dragon. Murakhan chuckled playfully, conjuring a tiny, adorable shadow dragon on the tip of his finger. Suddenly, an aura of joy surrounded Gilly as she clenched her fists with pure enthusiasm. As your servant, I'm just deeply shocked and incredibly happy for you. She then turned to listen intently to Jin's instructions. Either way, you're officially part of our crew now. The clan must not find out that Murakhan has awakened, nor can they know about my contract with him, at least for now. Got it? Gilly replied immediately. Yes, young master, I understand. Murakhan rudely sprang up, blocking Jin's way, and laughed boastfully. There's no need to worry, my sweet strawberry pie. After all, I'll always be by this kid's side. Gilly quickly thanked him. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Murakhan. Suddenly, Gilly remembered the loud crash she had heard earlier. By the way, about that loud noise from a few minutes ago, is your face all right? Jin shoved his hand directly onto Murakhan's face. You really need to be more careful. Murakhan grumbled. "Stop lecturing me," and began to explain. Glancing at the wooden platform that was still cracked and completely shattered, Murakami had no choice but to admit the truth. "I tripped." With zero shame whatsoever, he threw his head back and burst into laughter. Turning pale with worry, Gilly whispered, "Young master, are you absolutely sure we can trust him?" Jin couldn't say for sure either. "I think so." Meanwhile, at the Mytel teleportation gate, Murakami had transformed into a black cat, resting comfortably on Jin's shoulder. Gilly was speaking with Mirka, the vice-captain of the Black King mercenaries. Mirka's attention, however, was drawn to Murakami, who was currently a cat. "Was that cat here before?" Gilly ignored his gaze and politely addressed him. "The Runcandel clan will surely reward your hard work handsomely." Standing tall and proud, he responded, "This mission was also a valuable experience for us." Mirka then looked down at Jin and the wide-eyed black cat resting on his shoulder. "I can't wait to see the future of the young Runcandel master you serve." Suddenly, his tone shifted as he added, "But I do have one question for you." Startled, Gilly replied, "Yes?" Mirka gestured respectfully and asked in a serious tone, "Why would someone with your outstanding talents choose to leave the McRollan clan just to become a nanny for a young Runcandel master?" Gilly coldly turned away. There is nothing left to discuss. Realizing he had overstepped, Mirka awkwardly scratched his head and apologized. "Forgive me, I spoke out of turn." She replied gently, "It is fine." Then, Gilly turned her attention back to the soldiers behind them. Together, they walked inside the building. The gatekeeper greeted them mechanically. "Welcome to the teleportation gate. May I see your identification?" She unwrapped her cloth, revealing the sword emblem of the Runcandel clan, which represented the Hufester alliance. The gatekeeper's eyes widened. "Ah, you are from the Runcandel clan." Gilly immediately wrapped the emblem back up in the cloth. The gatekeeper gestured forward to lead the way. "It is an honor to meet you. Please, follow me. We will arrange premium seating for your group." Murakami sat quietly on Jin's shoulder. They moved forward as the staff informed them, "We will depart in 2 hours and arrive in the blink of an eye. Have a safe trip then." The two of them sat down, and the cat quickly leaped onto the seat cushion. When Gilly suddenly called out to the young master, Jin looked up in confusion, only to see Murakami peacefully sleeping on her lap. Gilly frowned with concern. "Frankly, as a servant, I am terrified of what will happen if Murakami's identity is exposed. We wouldn't be able to handle the consequences." Jin understood her meaning instantly. "You're talking about my magic, aren't you?" Gilly's voice grew anxious. "Yes, because absolutely no one in the Runcandel clan is allowed to practice it." Jin smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, I know. I'll make sure to keep it completely hidden." Suddenly, the two of them and the cat froze, looking back in surprise. Jin narrowed his eyes as a green robe bearing the golden dragon emblem caught his attention. There, with snow-white hair, stood Veridin. He strode in aggressively, flanked by his massive bodyguards. Jin immediately recognized Veridin Zipfel. The guy plopped down on the chair right in front of them, while Jin and Gilly could only watch in silence. Jin covered half his face with his book to quietly observe him. Resting his chin on his hand, Veridin muttered in an annoyed voice, "Who is that? They look so familiar. I really did not feel like traveling to Hufester today." His next words made Gilly scowl in irritation, but Jin managed to keep his cool. "I never thought I would run into such annoying pests here." But before anyone could react, Murakami leapt off his seat and walked over, sitting obediently right beneath Veridin's chair. This made Veridin exclaim, "Your cat is so cute." Smiling brightly, he waved at Murakami. "Come here, buddy. Aren't you a good boy?" The cat strolled over casually, but then, Murakami's attitude shifted instantly as he fiercely clawed at Veridin's hand. His bodyguards panicked, shouting, "Young master, you little rascal." Remarkably, Veridin did not get angry. He calmly reassured his two bodyguards, who were already drawing their swords. "Hey, it is fine. It is just an animal. I must have scared it. Besides, drawing your swords in front of a Runcandel is completely pointless." Veridin glanced over curiously again. He was quite surprised to see no intense reaction from the two of them. He had only been curious and wanted to push their buttons a bit, but he never expected them to be this unfazed. "I guess the youngest son of the Runcandels is pretty level-headed." Murakami turned around and casually lounged on Jin's lap. Veridin stood up, resting his hands on his hips as he introduced himself. "I am Veridin Zipfel. I want to apologize for being so rude a moment ago." Jin silently observed Veridin Zipfel. In Jin's memories, this guy was a legendary, larger-than-life figure who basked in the praise of the masses. a genius magician who was the most likely candidate to inherit the Zipfel clan, and a role model for all young mages, possessing both top-tier skill and elegance. Yet right now, he was just a kid, smiling and reaching his hand out to him. Jin recalled how he used to think this guy was light years ahead of him as a mage. Even though Jin made no move to shake his hand, Veridin's smile did not waver. Jin thought to himself, so that is how he was back then. I never expected to meet him when we were the same age. This actually feels pretty great. Jin closed his book and simply stroked his cat, completely ignoring the boy's outstretched hand. I was also curious about what kind of person you were. It is good to know you are not a complete idiot. Veridin asked awkwardly. So, what is your verdict? Though Jin was smiling, his words were laced with heavy threat. Even if you were just joking, if those guys had fully drawn their swords, you would be walking around Hoofester without any bodyguards. Oh, and you might have lost a few fingers too. Veridin laughed, awkwardly waving his right hand that had been hanging in the air this whole time. Man, even your jokes are pretty violent. Jin's blue eyes flashed with a cold, ruthless glint as he growled, Do you really think I am joking? Veridin felt a chill of fear, but he forced a nervous chuckle to play it off. All right, let me give you some advice. He spoke in a placating tone. If you ever meet another Zipfel or end up in a similar situation, do not make a rash decision to go around cutting off their fingers. Otherwise, it will only end up being a massive headache for both of our families. Jin sneered mockingly. That is a good joke, Veridin. His calm delivery caught the other boy completely off guard, leaving him utterly dazed. My father, Siren Runcandel, and your father, Keliark Zipfel, do you honestly think they would ever interfere in a fight between kids? Veridin's eyes widened in utter shock. Veridin crossed his arms and burst into hearty laughter. You are totally right. They would probably just pay some gold coins as compensation or something. Hey, I really learned something from you today. I will repay this debt as soon as I can. Jin raised his eyebrows, demanding immediately, Do not leave it for later. Pay me back right now. Veridin eagerly leaned in, asking, Of course. What do you need? But Jin's cold response left Veridin completely frozen in his tracks. I would be highly grateful if you could just stay quiet until the teleportation gate starts working, and stop disturbing my rest. Veridin fell into a dramatic, noisy silence, fidgeting and making all sorts of faces. Jin, that guy. He is going to become insanely strong in a few years, isn't he? Veridin sat flat on the floor, resting his face on the table as he stared intently at Jin with sparkling eyes. If it were not for his family, I would definitely become friends with him. Feeling deeply embarrassed, his bodyguard muttered a quick reminder. Young master, please watch your image. But instead, Veridin became absolutely thrilled as a sudden thought struck him. Wait, if he is a Runcandel, does that mean there is a chance he will become my sworn, lifelong enemy? Man, I am so cool. Pinching the bridge of his nose in utter exhaustion, the bodyguard sighed. Young master, please. Jin stood helpless before the starry-eyed, longing look Veridin was giving him. What an absolute pain. His hand must still be throbbing in serious pain, yet he is acting like this. What is wrong with the Zipfel clan anyway? Are they all completely insane? Suddenly, an announcement over the loudspeaker shattered the strange tension in the room. Thank you for your patient wait. Brilliant, glowing runes began to light up across the gate on the ceiling. A massive surge of magic flared into a diamond shape as a cold, mechanical voice announced. The teleportation gate is now temporarily open. Passengers may experience headaches or dizziness as a temporary side effect. Therefore, please sit in groups of 2 people and 1 pet, and wait in an orderly fashion to enter the gate. As the blue magical energy slowly enveloped them, Veridin suddenly jumped to his feet and called out, Jin Runcandel! Even though he was about to warp away, Veridin eagerly shouted, It was great meeting you. Let us meet again next time. Jin coldly rejected the offer and turned his head away. I can't say the same. Let us never meet again. Just then, a towering castle and a flag bearing the Runcandel family crest came into view. The carriage rolled forward without stopping, while Gilly stood silently and formally at his side. The moment Jin stepped down from the carriage, a welcoming voice immediately rang out, We have been waiting for you, young master. Petro bowed respectfully. This is the first time I've had the honor of welcoming you. I am the second butler, Petro. Behind him, knights clad in iron armor stood in perfect formation. Sharp swords of all shapes and sizes were driven deep into the ground in the center of the castle courtyard. Petro politely added, It must have been a long and difficult journey to get here. An entire magnificent mansion gleamed under the bright sunlight. I would like to formally welcome you to the main Runcandel estate. Glowing golden swords caught everyone's attention. He introduced the area as the Garden of Swords. Petro explained. The Garden of Swords is where those who have dedicated their lives to the prosperity of the Runcandel clan are honored by having their swords planted here. The hilts of these swords were all intricately carved. In other words, this place was the symbol of dreams and honor for every member of the Runcandel clan. Together, they crossed the Garden of Swords, heading deeper into the mansion. Jin quietly thought to himself that planting his own sword here before he died had once been his dream too. Memories of his past self, helplessly kneeling in weakness, flashed through his mind. His past self, weak and utterly devoid of talent, without any leadership skills or wisdom. How could he have been so foolish to think that simple effort could change everything? Jin lifted his head, his clear eyes filled with determination. This time, in this sacred place, he would live a truly meaningful life. The windows, bearing the Runcandel family crest, stood out clearly under the golden sunlight. Jin and Gilly finally arrived. He calmly looked up at the figures standing on the steps. The Black Panther, Rosa, matriarch of the Runcandel clan, was the first to speak. It has been a long time, my youngest. He replied, yes, mother. Rosa was slightly taken aback, while the cat's golden bronze eyes widened. Sairon narrowed his eyes, staring thoughtfully at Murakan. He asked Jin, did you pick up a stray animal? Jin reached out and scratched the black cat's chin, making it look pleased, before politely replying, I have taken him in, father. Sairon quickly picked up on the subtle choice of words. Taken him in rather than picked him up. Rosa looked over in surprise. He praised him. It is good that you speak with such poise. Indeed, when a Runcandel claims ownership of something, that is the proper way to put it. Suddenly, Murakan jumped off Jin's shoulder, startling him. Rosa bent down to gently stroke the cat. My son, what is this little one's name? Jin gave the fake name he had made up for Murakan's cat form. His name is Nabi Runcandel, mother. Rosa was slightly taken aback when she heard the name. Unlike her, the other siblings immediately erupted in outrage. Dipus roared, what did you say? Father, mother, even if he is still young, this is unacceptable. How dare he give the Runcandel name to a mere stray? He then turned his anger on Gilly, barking, Gilly, how on earth have you been raising our youngest brother? How dare a common cat carry our name? She could only bow her head and apologize. I am terribly sorry. Seeing this, Sairon intervened. Enough. He looked down at his youngest son and asked, why did you give this cat the Runcandel surname? Jin placed his hand respectfully over his heart and answered firmly, because doing so means I will take full responsibility for him. He calmly explained, he may just be an animal, but he is the very first life I have taken in. Therefore, I believe his name should hold true value. Sairon was taken aback by this response. How intriguing. But, my youngest, do you truly understand the sheer weight that the Runcandel name carries? Jin picked up the cat and held him close. His demeanor and voice carried an unwavering determination. I understand perfectly. If anyone dares to insult Nabi, I will make them pay. Sairon lightly tapped the head of his cane and remarked, my youngest, it seems you have quite a talent for making enemies. Sairon then glanced at the sour expressions of his other children and said, just look at how your siblings are glaring at you. Even so, Jin simply held Murakan calmly and confidently retorted, it seems so, father. However, I also happen to have a talent for destroying my enemies. He let out a satisfied smile, showing a flash of white teeth, and issued a subtle warning. All of you better watch your backs if you plan on crossing this insolent little brother of yours. With those words, Sairon turned and walked away. Time flew by, and 4 years later, in the early summer of 1794, a call for the young master echoed across the vast courtyard of the mansion. Jin was now a tall teenager. Jin Runcandel, 14 years old, a 2-star knight, and a low-ranking cadet. Garen walked up and announced, we will end the training for our youngest young master here. You've worked hard today, sir, he asked thoughtfully, but we've only trained for the morning session. Garen rested his hands on his hips and chuckled. Doesn't Lady Luna have a training session planned for you today? You might have forgotten, but this is Garen Altamiro, a Runcandel guardian knight and low-ranking instructor. Jin had no choice but to place his wooden sword back on the rack and said, right, you're correct. I'll go grab a bite to eat then. Garen asked with a sigh of resignation, are you planning on eating with the other cadets again today? The matriarch seems quite disappointed. He let out a weary sigh to reassure him. It is fine. I just don't feel like having a staring contest with my siblings while I'm trying to eat. He complied with Jin's wish. Understood. I will relay that to her. Meanwhile, the other cadets had already lined up with their trays, receiving a variety of dishes at the counter. Suddenly, someone spoke up, catching Jin off guard and making him look over. Young master, I brought some food for you. He politely replied, Thanks, Bellup. He smiled brightly as he handed the food to Jin. It is nothing, young master. He was Bellup Schmitz, a cadet of the Runcandel Guardian Knights, currently in the lower class. Jin kept his eyes fixed on the boy beside him, who was stuffing his face and chewing like crazy. Bellup Schmitz, 13 years old, a commoner. After a training cycle, Jin narrowed his eyes as he remembered what happened in his past life. This guy faced being stripped of his cadet status and expelled. Curiously, Jin asked, Is it that good? Startled, he looked up blankly and muttered, Yes, but his cheeks were still completely stuffed with food, and his fork was still in his mouth. Bellup showed pure admiration, speaking with a look of longing. Of course, I am always grateful to the Runcandel family. Because of them, I get to eat this delicious meat. And I am also grateful to you, young master, for always sharing your meat with me. Jin quickly cut off the long-winded speech. Okay, that is enough. Stop it. Jin asked Bellup out of curiosity. You said the exact same thing yesterday. Did you memorize that? All the boy could do was scratch his head and laugh embarrassedly. Suddenly, Jin warned him with a serious look. Bellup, you need to learn to control yourself and act with some maturity. The truth is, when you babble like this, other people will always look down on you. He stammered in response. Is that so? Jin's face turned stern and strict as he held up his spoon to set an example. Exactly. Keep your back straight and be confident. Have pride in the fact that you are a cadet of the Runcandel Guardian Knights. Bellup timidly lowered his head and mumbled, But my grades are terrible. I cannot even reach 1-star rank. Jin closed his eyes, let out a sigh, and advised him, Becoming a Runcandel cadet is never supposed to be easy in the first place. As the food on the tray slowly dwindled, Jin continued to guide him warmly. No matter how low your grades are, you are still far better than any other 13-year-old out there. Understand? The boy only dared to whisper back, Yes. Jin glanced at Bellup, who was happily devouring his food, and thought to himself, He is far too naive. It would not be an exaggeration to say he was targeted by my family. Jin thought back to his past life. How could someone so pure-hearted have walked the path of a master swordsman after becoming a loyal hound for the Empire and embarking on a merciless, bloody path? Jin felt a deep pity for Bellup's cruel fate. When I heard he became a royal guard, I was shocked. And when I heard he took his own life, it broke my heart. If I just leave Bellup like this, Jin placed a piece of meat onto Bellup's tray, making him gasp in surprise. Young master, he quickly reassured him, I am not hungry, you can have it. Bellup looked at Jin with sparkling, teary eyes. Young master. Jin smiled as he watched the boy happily chewing away beside him. I must make sure you do not get expelled this time. Jin resolved himself. A single lifetime of misfortune and death was more than enough. And so, the two boys sat together, sharing laughs and enjoying their delicious meal. Jin headed back to change his clothes, counting on his fingers to review his progress as he walked. Releasing shadow energy is 2-star, mana is 4-star, and swordsmanship is 2-star. Folding down his fingers until only 2 remained, he smirked in satisfaction. This is going pretty smoothly. If I keep this up, I should be able to reach 3-star swordsmanship within 2 years. But before that, Luna drove her sword into the cold stone floor and announced, My adorable little brother, today's training will be just like yesterday's. The two stood facing each other, leaning their swords against the ground. She commanded, However, you will have to defend yourself in a different way. Jin replied politely, I understand, big sister. Luna looked at him and instructed, Little brother, use your mind's eye. A mysterious, dark blue magical aura flared up. Although Jin closed his eyes and complied, he could not help but feel a bit cautious and anxious. See with your mind's eye. I guess I have to get through a training method I have never even heard of before, Luna emphasized. See with the eyes of your soul. Jin obediently shut his eyes tight to follow her instructions. She continued to guide him. For those who live to sharpen their blades, obtaining the eyes of the soul is more important than anything else. Luna also stood tall and closed her eyes, carefully repeating, Do not open your eyes. Even as he stood still and complied, doubts filled his mind. The eyes of the soul is a realm that only knights above 7-star rank can achieve. But is she really teaching this to a mere 2-star like me? Jin's mind raced. Not only that, but the eyes of the soul are normally achieved by dispersing aura. Since I cannot use aura during training, I should not even be able to comprehend this. It felt as if he had become a towering swordsman, clad in heavy iron armor, holding a sword in his hand, focusing all his brilliant, overflowing energy directly into the blade. But Jin chose to trust her, his hand tightening around the hilt. No, I choose to trust my sister. I am sure she has a reason for this. By focusing on this training, I believe I will be able to understand this lesson one day. Time flew by quickly, and the two finally finished their training session. Luna did not hold back her praise. You did great today too, Jin. You may head back now. He scratched his neck and beamed. Thank you, Sister Luna. Recalling his focus during training, she couldn't help but marvel. Just as expected. I knew he would do well, but he always manages to exceed my expectations. He shows a level of focus and memory that is hard to find in a mere 2-star knight. With your potential, I am sure you will understand it in just a few years. Luna's expression softened, filled with warmth and affection. She silently cheered him on, thinking, keep growing, my little brother. Meanwhile, Jin returned to the training ground, where the cadets had already lined up in perfect formation. In unison, they shouted, Welcome, young master. Meanwhile, Belop stood nervously among the crowd, looking completely drained. Everyone was sizing each other up, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. Seeing this, Garen burst into laughter, resting his hands on his hips. This sparring match makes up a huge part of your final evaluation. A good score is the fastest shortcut to becoming a guardian knight, so I'm sure you're all sweating bullets. Turning to Jin with a smirk, he added, Today is a massive day for you too, young master. Jin, who had been observing the crowd with his arms crossed, looked over in surprise. Garen explained, Lady Rosa said that if you defeat 10 opponents of a higher rank today, you can join the intermediate training group at the start of next year. Jin remained completely calm, replying, Did Mother really say that? That's great news. But as he glanced over, his eyes caught Belop, who was clutching his shoulders and shaking like a leaf, making Jin worry. Ugh, Belop is doing it again. Rubbing his temples in frustration, Jin thought, I'll do my best to keep him from getting expelled. But he seriously needs to find some confidence. By now, Belop's face had turned completely pale from sheer terror. Garen's booming voice rang out, Listen up. Today, everyone will spar 3 times, switching partners each round. The top 10 victors will go one-on-one with young Master Jin. Yes, instructor, they roared in unison. With that, the chaotic matches kicked off. Cadets clashed swords with zero mercy, and losers were slammed ruthlessly onto the dirt. Watching them, Jin silently evaluated, They're not bad. They didn't earn their trainee titles for nothing. As the defeated cadets lined up, Garen commanded, All right, those who didn't make the cut, fall back. They quickly shouted, Yes, sir. Garen turned to Jin, warning, Get ready, young master. Jin firmly gripped his sword and confidently replied, Ready when you are. In a flash, he drew his sword and ruthlessly disarmed his first opponent, sending their weapon spinning high into the air before clattering onto the ground. Jin thought to himself, All right, that makes 8. Just 2 more to go. He narrowed his eyes, thinking, But to pull this off, she's the one I need to watch out for. Behind him, Garen shouted, Next fighter, step up. A young girl with vibrant pink hair confidently stepped forward. Mesa Milcano, a beginner-rank Runcandel trainee guardian knight, stood tall without a shred of fear. Please guide me, she said. Jin knew exactly who she was. Mesa was a noble who would eventually become a legendary guardian knight after completing her training. Brimming with determination, she raised her sword into a stance. Today, I will defeat you, no matter what. Jin had actually been looking forward to this fight. Sparring with Mesa was the real highlight of this evaluation. Jin offered a polite smile and nodded, replying, Fair enough. Let's see what you've got. Mesa launched herself off the ground, descending on Jin like a raging storm as she brought her blade down. Yet, Jin effortlessly deflected the heavy blow. He stared coldly at their clashing blades. Mesa has definitely gotten stronger, but she's still not on my level. Jin parried her sword to the left, thinking strategically, the real challenge is pacing myself, since I still have to beat 8 more people after this. With that in mind, he casually neutralized all her attacks without breaking a sweat. Their blades blurred, weaving a complex web of steel in the air. Unlike Jin, Mesa was struggling just to keep up, panic slowly creeping onto her face. Why are his attacks so basic when I'm throwing everything I have at him? Her hands trembled on her hilt, a wave of frustration washing over her. He's definitely doing this on purpose. But why? Mesa's eyes widened in realization. Wait. No way. To her, Jin looked like a smug maniac, grinning as he casually rained strikes down on her. Mesa felt a chill of fear. Is he looking down on me? Refusing to accept another defeat today, her fighting spirit roared back to life. She poured all her strength into her grip, thinking, fine, then. Mesa deflected her sword, aiming straight for the center of Jin's blade, and screamed at the top of her lungs. Take this, young master. On the sidelines, Bellup and the other cadets watched with their jaws dropped. Meanwhile, Jin seemed to be enjoying the fight more and more, effortlessly neutralizing every single blow with a confident smirk. Her striking pink hair whipped through the air with every sharp movement. I won't let him look down on me anymore. This time, I'm going to surpass the young master. Grit and determination etched on her face, Mesa leaped high into the air, lunging straight at Jin. The two wooden swords collided with a sharp crack. With a single, decisive horizontal swipe, Jin snapped her sword clean in half. The broken blade flew high into the air as the dust began to settle. Mesa stared blankly at the shattered hilt in her hand, her mind completely blank. How is this even possible? Before she could process it, the tip of Jin's sword was already resting against her throat. Holding his sword steady, Jin offered a polite compliment. Great match, Mesa. He then lifted his own wooden sword, which was now covered in cracks, and sighed. Well, looks like this one's done for too. She gasped, her eyes locked onto his weapon. Staring at the strategic fractures on Jin's sword, a wave of sheer shock washed over her. No way. Did he seriously strike the exact same spot on my blade with every single hit? Our stamina and strength are identical, yet I lost in both precision and sheer stubbornness. How is that even possible? But she gradually came to accept it. After all, he was a child of the Runcandel family. Mesa called out, Young master. She promised loudly with all the passion in her heart. I will train with everything I have and definitely defeat you next time. Mesa quietly resolved that she couldn't keep losing like this. As the sky above gradually changed colors with time, everything was going according to plan. Yet another trainee was stunned after being defeated by Jin. For someone like me right now, facing 10 trainees head-on is extremely difficult. He coldly delivered the finishing blow. Despite my and Mesa's surprising victories, I've made them mistakenly believe they would lose in a direct clash. The wooden sword clattered to the ground as the loser knelt, completely frozen. He stood tall, looking down. With this, that makes 10. Thank goodness, everything is going according to plan. Jin wiped away his sweat, exhausted. Just as he let out a sigh of relief, Garen praised him. Excellent job, young master. He walked over with a bright smile, showering him with compliments. With this, you'll be able to train under a real Runcandel in the intermediate class next year. Congratulations in advance. Jin offered a polite smile in return. Thanks, Garen. I'll be in your care until then. Garen then gave him some news. It's almost lunchtime, so we're wrapping up morning training. Jin pondered for a moment, then asked, How much time is left? Garen replied honestly, About 10 minutes. Why do you ask? All the trainees standing around were already black and blue. With bandaged limbs, only Bellup remained unscathed. Jin glanced over them all and said, I still have one more person to face. Jin reached out and grabbed another wooden sword. Everyone wondered, Who? But he suddenly roared, Bellup Schmitz. Everyone stared at him with wide eyes. Bellup himself stood there slack-jawed, unable to believe it. He pointed at himself, stammering. Ye young master, me? Jin coldly ordered. Step forward, let's fight. Terrified, Bellup kept stuttering, too afraid to step up. But Jin raised his voice again. Bellup! Standing against the sun, Jin pointed his sword at him. You won't survive in Runcandel like this. He used all his strength, both commanding and pushing him. Step up, get over here and fight me. I will defeat you. Bellup's feet slowly moved forward. He hesitated with every step onto the arena. Holding the wooden sword, his hands trembled as he raised it. Why did the young master choose me? Is it because I'm weak? Is he using me to enforce discipline? With a stern face, Jin called out, Bellup! Hearing his name, Bellup flinched and replied, Yes, young master. His voice was freezing cold, with a hint of sarcasm. I'm quite tired after fighting 10 people, but you're different. You look perfectly fine. Hands on his hips, he said with confidence, but I'm still stronger than you, and that's exactly why I want to fight you. Bellup was stunned. What? Confused, he asked. What do you mean by that? Before Bellup could finish, Jin instantly swung his sword, eyes flashing as he aggressively charged forward. Though caught off guard, his soldier's reflexes kicked in. allowing him to raise his sword just in time to block the strike. However, the sheer force of the impact sent Belop sliding backward. In utter shock, he cried, "Young master, why are you doing this?" Before he could finish, a barrage of strikes from Jin rained down on him. Surprisingly, Belop blocked every single one. Jin chuckled mockingly. "Good blocks." Belop didn't lose focus as he thanked him, then swung his sword, forcing Jin to back off. The wooden sword scraped against the floor, leaving a deep groove as dirt and debris flew everywhere. Taking another heavy hit, Belop grit his teeth and braced himself, his entire body tense. Jin paused, holding his sword as he took a few steps back. In an instant, he pressed his hand to the floor, quickly lowering his posture, and slid forward like a gust of wind, rushing straight at Belop. Caught off guard this time, Belop crashed to the floor. He sat up and grit his teeth, tears of sheer frustration welling up in his eyes. Unable to take it anymore, Belop looked up. "Young master, why are you doing this?" Jin replied slowly, his voice firm. "Do you honestly think I called you out here just for a simple sparring match? I wanted a real fight with you." Jin stood tall, pointing the tip of his sword down, speaking in a strict tone. "Otherwise, I could have just killed you already." Jin gripped his sword, ordering, "Get up! I will only hold back once." Whispers broke out among the crowd as the sword in Belop's hand suddenly began to glow. Mesa realized what it was and screamed, That's aura." As the light grew brighter, his face turned cold and sharp. She turned to Garen, the swordsmanship instructor, her voice urgent. "Instructor, we need to stop this match right now. If they keep going, the young master will be in danger." Jin cast a threatening gaze at Garon and the surrounding cadets. "This is an order. Take what you saw here today to your graves." Instructor Garen grit his teeth reluctantly. "I understand." A flicker of sadness passed through Belop's eyes. "Is this what you truly want, young master?" "Yes, it is." Jin's tone was incredibly cold. "Since you know how to use aura, don't hold back." Belop grit his teeth in frustration. "You've made a grave mistake. Young master, if you want a real fight with me, then..." Belop roared, furiously charging toward Jin to attack. "You should have challenged me before dueling the others." Jin frowned, slightly taken aback as he raised his sword to block the strike, but his weapon couldn't withstand the pressure. Unable to withstand the pressure, the blade snapped in half. Jin gritted his teeth and backed away to dodge the blow. His eyes widened, thinking to himself that he had no idea his opponent was this strong. Jin recalled their past training sessions. He knew Belop was strong. Whenever the cadets challenged each other, Belop could read his opponent's skills and tactics perfectly. On top of that, he always knew how to avoid getting hurt, even in defeat. But Jin never expected him to be able to use aura. While Jin was momentarily dazed, Belop rushed forward, unleashing all his fury in a rapid barrage of slashes. Even though Jin's sword was broken, Belop didn't stop. In a flash, Jin threw a punch right at Belop's sword arm. Gritting his teeth, Belop's hand trembled as he felt something closing in on him. The sword slipped from Belop's hand, and in an instant, Jin grabbed him by the neck with his bare hands and slammed him to the floor. Belop thrashed around, trying to break free. Seeing that it was time to end this, Jin slowly loosened his grip. Belop struggled to crawl out of Jin's hold. Refusing to accept this, he cried out, "Why did you stop? You said you wanted to fight to the end. Shouldn't you have finished the match?" Belop's voice was filled with resentment. "Do you enjoy playing with people like this?" Jin replied with a serious look. "Do you really think I'm that kind of person?" he demanded. "Then why?" Jin looked at Belop, his voice tight with reluctance. "Provoking you like this hurts me too," Jin explained. "It hurts me more than you think." Belop clenched his fists tightly. "What do you even know about me to torture me like this?" Jin slowly bent down and picked up the sword. "You're right, I don't know who you are," Jin said as he knelt down, his voice growing low and quiet. "But there is one thing I do know." His eyes turned solemn, and his voice carried the weight of a lesson to be engraved in the soul. "Compassion is something you can only afford to have when you are strong. You are weaker than me, and you're far kinder than I am," Jin said, placing a hand on Belop's shoulder. "And of course, I really like that about you. But if you're this soft-hearted, you won't survive in this living hell." Jin encouraged him, "Get stronger, so you can protect that kind heart of yours." Hearing those words, the onlookers were deeply moved. A kind heart meant for me, and for everyone else as well. Belop burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably as Jin gently comforted him. "I'm sorry I had to push you so hard." Just then, the kitchen staff walked in carrying ingredients. A pink-haired person gasped in shock. "Oh my goodness," he flusteredly added, "the training session isn't over yet. We'll come back later. Jin looked at them and said, "No, it's fine. Come on in." Belop then softly reminded him, "Young master, please come and receive today's meal ration." Jin stood up, looking dignified and composed. "All right, I'll go grab our rations." Deep inside the gloomy forest, Chiron quietly listened as Garon recounted the events. "So that's what my youngest son said?" Garon bowed respectfully and replied, "Yes, patriarch." Chiron burst into laughter. "I see. So the boy has made his choice." Thinking of Jin comforting Belop, Chiron smirked. He plans to protect the weak while ruling with absolute force? After a brief silence, he gave his instructions. If that is his path, then let him be. I want to see how far he can go. Garon, go back and report everything to the boy. Garon immediately obeyed. "Yes, sire." Chiron's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. "I will give him his first mission." In January of 1795, 15-year-old Jin was officially recognized as a 3-star knight. During their first break, some of the cadets returned home while the rest stayed behind to train and test their progress. Upon advancing to the intermediate level, wooden swords were no longer used for training. Custom-made real swords took their place. Many cadets had commissioned blacksmiths to craft custom swords for themselves, and Jin was also searching the family armory for a blade that would suit him. But suddenly, a voice called out to him. Luna giggled as she sighed. "Finding a sword that suits you is such a pain." Since she had insisted on choosing a sword for him, all the decision-making power had ended up in her hands. A month ago, she had practically begged him, "Jin, please, let me pick out a sword for you." He had reluctantly agreed, thinking, whatever. She has a much better eye for weapons than I do anyway, so the sword she chooses should be a good fit. Moments later, Luna showed up carrying a massive sword. Jin's eyes widened in utter disbelief. She rambled on excitedly. "This sword is called the Baal's Slaughterer. I used to carry this one around all the time when I was your age. A massive, sharp blade. Back when I was about your age, I thought I'd be using things just like this." Luna looked at it fondly, her voice drifting into nostalgia. "I'm pretty sure this is the prototype of my beloved Runcandel." Her eyes sparkled with anticipation. "So, what do you think of this sword? Do you like it?" Jin stood frozen, stammering, "Well, big sister Luna." His voice was strained. "I'm really grateful that you helped me pick a sword, but I don't think this one is quite right for me." She nodded with a hint of disappointment. "I see. No worries. I was just kidding." At that, Jin's face fell. I don't think she was joking at all, Jin thought. Luna brandished the sword in front of him, clearly not ready to give up. But the Baal's Slaughterer really is an amazing sword. Even though it's a bit heavy, it's not really that bad. Realizing her attempts to persuade him were falling flat, sighing, she fell silent for a moment before giving in. "All right. I'll listen to you. I'll choose another sword for you." A huge weight was lifted off Jin's shoulders. Luna led him to another room, speaking as she opened the door. "I really put a lot of heart and soul into picking a sword for you, you know." Inside was a massive armory, filled with countless swords. Luna was determined to find the one that suited him best. "A sword that only you can use." She stepped forward, picked up a sword, and held it up. "And here is my choice." Jin stared, completely mesmerized. Luna explained. "Since you chose Barisada in the beginning, I thought this would be the perfect fit for you." She drew the sword from its scabbard, the metal gleaming. He suddenly realized this sword was Bradamante, the sibling blade to Barisada, once wielded by the first patriarch. Jin gently caressed the blade, while Luna looked on with a satisfied smile. "You like it, don't you?" He praised it with pure excitement. "Yes, this really is the most special sword out of thousands of legendary blades." Jin held Bradamante in his hands, thinking to himself that this was the very sword he had vowed to get, no matter what. He never expected her to choose it for him. He thought to himself that both Bradamante and Barisada were perfect for wielding shadow energy. If he had chosen this sword himself, the others would have definitely opposed him and forced him to give it up. Jin said with a look of worry. "This Bradamante is a sword all of my older siblings want. So I really don't know how to thank you for choosing it for me," Luna agreed. "Yeah, that does sound like a bit of a problem." Then, she placed a hand over her heart and looked straight at him. "Jin, I'm guessing you still haven't let your guard down around me, have you?" Luna looked upset. "I'm actually a little disappointed." He quickly waved his hands. "No, that's not it at all. I'm being completely sincere." She pointed her finger right in his face, playfully teasing him. "Is that so? But I really am disappointed. So, you better comfort my poor, broken heart." He stammered. "Wait, what?" Luna urged. "Close your eyes, Jin. We're going to start your training." he agreed. All right. Under the clear blue sky, her voice was as gentle as drifting clouds. Do you know what I'm talking about? Jin replied confidently. Of course, Luna. She nodded in satisfaction. Good, but I still have one more thing to teach you today. Luna patted his shoulder, making him flinch in surprise. Wait, what is it? She explained softly. Your family members might always try to tear each other down, but they are also the ones who love you unconditionally. Luna's eyes shone with sincerity as she emphasized, keep that close to your heart. Then, she grabbed Jin's shoulders, shaking him vigorously as she yelled, and stop being so gloomy. He gasped, stammering, I get it, I'm sorry. She spoke calmly, though her heart felt heavy. I've lived a lonely life in this family since before you were even born. I've had more than enough of it. So please understand that I don't want you to go through a life like that too. Jin gently held his sore arm, his voice dropping. I understand. Luna walked off gracefully, holding her head high, as if nothing had happened. She gave a gentle, yet firm command. All right, let's begin training. Jin, feel it with all your heart. In a luxurious room, a voice echoed, Murakan. He showed off the sword he had just acquired. What do you think? Without even turning around, he kept lounging and reading his book. Put it back. Kid, you haven't mastered shadow energy yet, so you won't be able to use it. Jin froze. What? Murakan advised in a low, serious voice. If you want to use Bradamante, you need to be at least a 3-star in shadow energy. But you're only a 2-star brat, aren't you? His voice turned stern. You can't copy the awakened state of that sword. Displeased, Jin sheathed the sword. I'll reach 3-star soon. I'll be able to use it in no time. Right then, Murakan slammed his book shut. He was absolutely furious now. How arrogant. Listen up, kid. Murakan's face darkened, and he pressed down on Jin's head without mercy, grinding out every word. Barisada and Bradamante aren't swords you can just handle carelessly. You need at least 3-star shadow energy, and that's the bare minimum. He pressed down harder, his voice sharp and overbearing. Just stick to regular swords and wait until you reach 5-star shadow energy. Do you get it? He stubbornly pushed his hand away, his eyes filled with defiance. But, you know, I'm not the impatient type. Basically, I just need to reach 5-star shadow energy this year, right? A blue vein popped on Murakan's forehead in frustration. He grabbed Jin's head again, trying to snap him out of his delusion. Even if you place first in the shadow energy competition, mastering that power is completely absurd. I'm only saying this for your own good. Breathing heavily, Murakan lowered his voice, dripping with sarcasm, because it's so ridiculous that even a dog would laugh in your face. If you get what I'm saying, then stop talking nonsense. Jin gently reached out to grab the comic book, but suddenly snatched it right out of his hands, his voice dripping with defiance. Say that again. What did you just say? Murakan shrieked, his face turning pale. Damn it, put it down. I said put it down right now. Just then, a woman appeared, making both of them freeze. Young Master Jin turned around. Gilly, what is it? Did something happen? She walked in, looking uneasy. Instructor Garen is looking for you, sir. He was supposed to come here himself, but he said he needs to look at the map while discussing the strategic briefing with you, so he needs you to go over there. Murakan snatched the comic book back, clutching it to his chest like a priceless treasure. My precious manga. Jin, however, raised an eyebrow. Strategy? Gilly added, Instructor Garen has assigned you your very first mission. Once your break is over, you must depart immediately. He ran a hand through his hair and nodded. Is that so? Jin said calmly, slipping his hands into his pockets. I guess it is about time. I am a 3-star swordsman now, but heading out immediately after my break does feel a bit odd. She continued, her voice laced with worry. I suspect it is because the mission is extremely difficult. Normally, intermediate-level missions and above are reserved for senior cadets, but he remained nonchalant. It is probably because they have recognized my rapid progress, which is why they gave me this mission. Jin turned back, casually waving his hand in farewell. I will go check it out. Gilly, you stay here with Murakan. She bowed politely. Understood, young master. Please watch your step. As the heavy black door creaked open, he stepped into the briefing room. His eyes scanned the area before he spoke up. Garen, I heard I have been assigned a mission. He replied, Welcome, young master. Besides you, 10 other beginner cadets have also been assigned this mission. Getting straight to the point, Garen laid out the map on the table. You will all be split into 2 teams for this operation. This is a search mission near the southern border of the Zane Kingdom. Someone spoke up. Is not that kingdom right next to the Beastman territory? I think it is also close to the area marked as the White Wolf tribe lair. Jin scanned the map, his heart sinking. Beginner cadets have no business being sent to a place like this. He thought to himself. For a first mission, this is incredibly tough, and the time limit is much shorter than usual. An assistant stepped forward and handed him a stack of documents. Young master, here is the map and the detailed profiles of all the members. The others whispered among themselves as they read. Are our team members really just pre-intermediate cadets? Even Bellup, whose performance is completely unstable, is on the team? Suspicion began to creep into Jin's mind. Is it possible that someone deliberately set this up? The image of his father flashed in his mind. A deliberate proposal? If my duel with Bellup was reported to father, then this mission must be a test for me. His gaze turned cold. Fine, father. I will make sure to show you my absolute conviction. 3 days later, at the southern border, the objective of this mission was to locate the missing heir of the Zane Kingdom. First, once we arrive, we will establish a base camp at the center of the southern border. Once that is done, each team will begin their search and share intelligence by sending messengers back to the camp at designated times. From now on, do not address me as young master, but as commander. Any injured members will remain at the camp and rest as needed. With that, the team member finished his briefing. Let us just hope the target is still alive. Garen reported to the commander. The scout team spotted beastmen from the Watertail tribe. Jin raised an eyebrow. The Watertail tribe? He did not worry too much, knowing they were just a peaceful tribe that avoided conflict. We probably will not be heading into the neighboring territory of the White Wolf tribe anyway. Jin gave his orders. All right, Bellup, since the snow is going to slow you down, head out to the camp 2 hours early. Return to Area 13. He saluted in response. Understood, Commander. Jin continued directing his team. The rest of you, search Area 13. They saluted in unison. Yes, Commander. Though his voice remained firm and decisive, an uneasy premonition began to gnaw at Jin from within. I have a bad feeling about this. Father must have ordered this mission directly, yet everything is going way too smoothly. He tried to reassure himself. Could he have misunderstood his father's intentions to test him? Suddenly, a beastman from the Watertail tribe spoke up. Another beastman chimed in, looking somewhat dismissive. You look so poor. Shaking, one of them held up a fish skewer. Take it if you want. It is yours. Jin politely declined. Thank you. I will pay you back later. He picked up the map, lost in thought. Beyond Area 13 is beastman territory. The beginner cadets stand absolutely no chance against them. He told himself, I do not need to push myself too hard just to get outstanding results. I will spend the next 3 days double-checking the areas we have already searched. Just then, frantic footsteps echoed through the snow, and someone shouted for the young master. Bellup rushed over, completely out of breath. Young Master Jin. Jin turned around. What happened? His panicked shout made the entire squad freeze in their tracks. The second team was ambushed. Jin instantly barked out orders. Everyone, prepare to move. Bellup, what is the situation? He frantically reported. Team 2 scattered to evade the enemy. One survivor managed to make it back to the base camp to report the situation. Jin pressed further. Was it an ambush by beastmen? Bellup shook his head. No, they were ambushed by humans, and they confirmed there were 3 of them. Attacking a Runcandel squad with only 3 people? His eyes narrowed with skepticism. That makes no sense. I am certain they have backup. Jin immediately issued his orders. Eddington, Phils, head back to camp and guard the perimeter. If you spot the enemy, engaging is strictly forbidden. Report back as soon as possible. The squad saluted. Understood, sir. His voice echoed softly in the snowy forest. There are way too many enemies here. Jin ran, his mind racing with calculations. But what could their target be? They went after Squad 2 instead of Squad 1, where I am, he muttered to himself. He frowned. He didn't know who the attackers were, but his comrades had definitely been ambushed. I'll make sure they pay dearly for laying a hand on House Runcandel. Suddenly, Sierra noticed something off. Young master, there is blood. Bellup panicked. No. Mesa. Is everyone in Squad 2 dead? Jin cut him off, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. The blood is still fresh. Jin knelt down, smearing a drop of blood between his fingers to inspect it. There were no signs of a struggle or any torn flesh. He concluded that a skirmish had taken place, and Squad 2 was forced to retreat. Judging by the footprints, Only a single person had ambushed them. Sierra suddenly called out, "Young master, we found discarded bandages. They look like they belong to a healer." Jin nodded. "Good work. Where did you find them?" Sierra replied briefly. "To the west." An idea flashed in Jin's mind. So while they were treating their wounded after the chase, they were ambushed again and forced to move further west. Without a moment's hesitation, Jin stood up and ordered, "Sierra, regroup with Eddington and support them." "Let's move, Bellup." Bellup nodded. "Right behind you, young master." The two of them dashed forward, following the tracks until Bellup whispered, "It's Squad 2, young master." Jin remained cautious. "I see them," but his eyes locked onto the crowd ahead. Mesa isn't with them. Not only that, the number of ambushers has increased by 1, Jin muttered, his voice dropping low. Bellup closed his eyes, and after 2 seconds, he drew his sword, ready for action. "I'll take the one on the left," Jin responded. "Understood." Jin gripped Bradamante, recalling Murakan's teachings about the nature of shadow energy. In an instant, Jin unleashed a surge of dark power from his blade. Enveloped in shadow energy, the blade's sharpness and destructive power multiplied. He lunged straight at his target with swift, brutal precision. The true power of the sword echoed in his mind. Scott watched in utter shock as an enemy fell dead before him. Bellup charged straight toward Hades. Frozen in place, Hades gasped, "What the hell is this?" A sudden instinct of danger made him look up. At that exact moment, a dark shadow descended upon them. Jin unsheathed Bradamante in one fluid motion. Bellup pressed from the front, forcing Hades to raise his sword in a desperate block, but right behind him, Jin delivered a lethal slash. Hades collapsed, screaming in agony. Jin turned to check on his comrades. "Is everyone all right?" Clutching his injured arm, Kiko struggled to stand up. "Young master, we're fine, but they captured Mesa." Taimont added, his voice heavy with guilt. "We failed you, young master. We're so sorry." Jin replied calmly, "It's fine. Treat the wounded first. That is our priority." Looking down at Hades writhing in pain, Jin stepped closer with a cold, mocking gaze. "Are you begging me for mercy? From the look of it, you guys seem to be nothing but foolish pawns of the Zipfels." Bradamante gleamed in his hand. "I'll give you 2 choices." Jin's expression turned ice cold. "First, tell me who you work for, what your goal is, and where your base is, and I'll give you a quick death. Or, second, keep your mouth shut and die in agony like the rest of your comrades." His voice was absolute, and I always keep my promises. "My name is Jin Runcandel, and I swear on my family's laws and my own honor." Hades gritted his teeth, his tough exterior completely shattered by pure terror. "Fine. Just, please spare my family," he confessed. "I belong to a revolutionary group called Kinzello." Jin raised an eyebrow. "Kinzello?" The name rang a bell. It was the notorious terrorist organization that had risen to power around the time of his death in his past life. Memories flooded back of a chaotic world where they assassinated kings and slaughtered innocent people. They styled themselves as revolutionaries, but Kinzello's true idea of a revolution was to make their own leader the ruler of the entire world. Snapping back to reality, Jin interrogated Hades further. "Are you trying to spark a rebellion in this kingdom by slaughtering Runcandel soldiers?" Terrified, Hades pleaded frantically, "I'm just a low-level thug. I don't know that much. I don't know where the main base is, but our branch operates near the entrance of the Beastmen territory. There are about 20 warriors and 4-star mages there." Jin growled. "Last question. Why did you capture Mesa?" Hades replied with a trembling voice. "It's for propaganda, to spread the word of our revolution. We had orders to capture female soldiers alive." Scott gritted his teeth, cursing under his breath. "You sick, dirty bastards." Shivering with fear, Hades whimpered, "I swear, that's all I know." Jin raised his sword. "I always keep my word," he said, delivering a swift, clean strike that ended Hades' life. Turning to Bellup, Jin asked, "How long ago did they take Mesa?" Bellup replied, "About an hour ago." Jin commanded, "Then they must still be near the entrance to the Beastmen territory. Finish administering first aid, and then immediately request backup from our base." Hearing this, Kiko grew deeply concerned. "Forgive me, young master, but are you planning to go in there alone?" His voice filled with anxiety. "The ambushers are 4-star warriors, and there are 20 of them in total." Scott chimed in. "He's right, young master. Going alone is suicide." He desperately tried to persuade Jin. "We are soldiers. It's our duty to lay down our lives in battle. So please, don't do this." Jin cut him off. You're right, Scott, but how could anyone carrying the Runcandel bloodline stand by and do nothing while our own soldiers are captured alive? We can't just stand by and do nothing. Jin's voice was firm. I am much stronger than any of you think. So, obey my orders. I will crush any resistance and disobedience. And one more thing, Bellup. Since every member of the second squad is injured, you are now their strongest soldier. You have to keep a clear head. Do you understand what I'm saying? Bellup nodded. I will keep that in mind, young master. Jin immediately dashed off. The image of Mesa bound and helpless flashed through his mind, and he silently prayed, please, don't let me be too late. In the freezing night, Jin assessed the situation and thought, the enemy has 20 soldiers, and they are all at the 4-star rank. He let out a weary sigh. His swordsmanship was only around 3-star, his magic 4-star, and his shadow energy release only 3-star. Jin pushed forward through the freezing mist, his mind heavy with worry. My growth has been solid, but in my current state, I can't take them all on at once. Right now, my absolute priority is saving Mesa. I need to avoid combat as much as possible and focus on locating Mesa using my magic. Jin cast a detection spell. Delicate webs of light flowed from his hands, spreading out into the darkness. Like a spider web scanning the terrain, he thought. If I layer a wind tracking spell on top of this. His hands moved swiftly, weaving complex magic circles. He directed the glowing green lights toward the open meadows. Jin immediately sprinted in the direction his magic pointed. They couldn't have gone far, but on his way, he was suddenly ambushed. Flashes of light tore through the air straight at Jin, as a voice yelled, "It's that Runcandel brat!" Instantly, a group of hostile figures lunged from the bushes. Jin's hands flared with light once more, unleashing a surge of green energy. The blast slammed directly into the attackers, leaving them completely dumbfounded. Magic? Since when does a Runcandel use magic? Shouts erupted in the chaos. Damn it, just kill him! Jin instantly drew Bradamante to face them. With one swift slash, one of them was sent flying. From the back, the leader, wielding a flaming staff, roared, "Get out of my way!" He immediately unleashed a torrent of fierce flames directly at the boy. In the blink of an eye, a spiral of fire wrapped tightly around Jin's arm. He laughed triumphantly, thinking he had the boy trapped. But even with his arm completely engulfed in flames, Jin didn't flinch. Jin used his other hand to deliver a devastating blow. The fire wrapping his arm wasn't just suppressed. He bent it to his will, turning it into a lethal counterattack. Jin stood tall and imposing, one hand gripping his sword and the other clutching the roaring flames. The leader gasped in pure terror at the sight. Even so, he refused to back down. Seeing his fire fail, he instantly switched tactics, morphing the flames into ice as he screamed, "Fine, then I'll rip you to shreds with ice instead." A shard of ice pierced Jin's chest, but his gaze remained cold as death. He lunged right through the freezing barrage, as if he felt absolutely nothing. The sight left the leader utterly terrified. "No way," he stammered, completely dumbstruck. How?" In the quiet night, a furious scream echoed, "My magic." Jin took slow, deliberate steps forward, cursing those Kinzello bastards in his head. Looking around at the scene, he noted to himself, "It seems they aren't even trying to hide their tracks. They really underestimate their opponents." Jin reached his hand down. They must have met up with another group here and traveled by carriage. Kinzello is a highly structured group, so they probably distribute their loot strictly by rank. Picking up a discarded map, he continued to strategize. Since the lower-ranking members wouldn't dare touch the spoils reserved for the higher-ups, this is my only chance to rescue Mesa safely. Jin unfolded the map. I'm close to the Beastmen's territory, so their base must be nearby. With that thought, he summoned his fire magic. I'll create a distraction and find an opening to rescue Mesa. Moments later, fireballs shot out like cannonballs, unleashing a roaring blaze that quickly consumed the forest. Jin kept conjuring blue magical vortexes, calculating, if I do this, they'll scramble outside to put out the fire. As the flames erupted, nearby enemies started shouting, "Fire! What the hell is going on?" Chaos broke out as they panicked. "Where did this fire come from? Put it out now. Water, get some water." Jin watched them from the shadows. With a look of pure disdain, he muttered, "Don't you idiots even know how to put out a fire properly?" A massive brute yelled in a panic, "Mages, use your water and ice spells." Jin stared at him, wondering, is that guy their leader? The growing flames threw them into even deeper panic. "Boss, the fire won't go out," one of them screamed. Do you idiots think a fire just starts on its own in this weather? Someone set this. Find them now. Suddenly, the boss sensed a presence behind him. The shouting and confusion only grew louder. Move it! Get the mages over here, quick! Amidst the thick smoke, Jin held a set of keys. Smirking to himself, he thought, perfect, I found the way in. Slipping through the slightly ajar door, he searched the area, shivering slightly. It's freezing in here. Where could Mesa be? Suddenly, a hatch door on the floor caught his eye, making him wonder, a basement? Peering into the darkness, he caught sight of long, familiar hair. Jin instantly called out, Mesa, and she turned her head. Her voice trembled as she cried out, Young master. Mesa anxiously asked, Why are you here? It is far too dangerous. He gently reassured her, his voice firm and steady. Do not worry about me. Can you walk? Tightly bound, she struggled to reply, Yes, but I do not think I can run. Jin immediately slashed the ropes. All right, I will help you up. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, causing him to freeze. What is that sound? Mesa panicked, calling out softly, Young master. She looked straight into his eyes, her voice turning unusually serious. Can you promise me one thing? Jin frowned. Do not say another word, Mesa. But she persisted, her voice filled with absolute determination. If we end up in a desperate situation, please, just leave me behind. You are far too important, young master. Nothing bad can happen to you. Ignoring her plea, he helped her up. Let us just move first. It is dangerous here. The moment they stepped out of the basement, they saw the surrounding area already covered in rubble and corpses. Jin immediately realized this was the handiwork of that beastman from the warrior tribe. Both of them stood in silence, scanning the area. In the distance, a massive figure appeared, a creature with pure white fur slowly walking toward them. It was a member of the White Wolf tribe. Mesa screamed, Young master, I will buy you some time, so please hurry. But before she could even finish her sentence, she was knocked unconscious. Kuajito roared in anger, You useless bastards! If you cannot even put out a simple fire, there is no reason for you to live. Glaring at Jin, he demanded, You are the brat who caused all this, aren't you? Unfazed, Jin replied sharply, That is right. I am the son of Sairon, Runcandel. Jin Runcandel. With eyes as sharp as a sword, he ordered, Reveal your name, beastman. Kuajito grinned maliciously. Runcandel, you are a